China. So the first thing I want to say about the trip is we want to establish the fact that when Ms. Davino was hired, one of the things that she talked about was revenue streams and how we can bring revenue streams in this excruciatingly tight financial times to our district. So maybe you want to talk a little bit about that before we get started?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
You guys have a mic up there so that way the live feed can hear it?
Okay.
Good.
Maybe we'll just start. Are you running the mic off the camera? Okay.
Okay.
If you want to bring it closer, Steve, you can.
You can hear us, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just want to make sure people can hear us.
Good.
Yeah? Okay, good. All right.
For the members of the board, most of the board was here when I was interviewed last year. We have a few new members since that time. Pardon my back, I do want to address members of the audience as well, and I know our live stream gets us out into the public. So, about a year ago, one of the concerns of the Board of Education was, Ms. Davino, as a, candidate for the superintendent of schools, can you talk to us about some potential revenue ideas? And we talked about several opportunities. One of them is a student exchange program. Typically, in the United States, student exchange programs are really only utilized by private schools. It's much less regulatory for private schools, and this goes for Catholic, private, independent, charter, etc. Right? When you're looking at the public schools, the laws surrounding the visas are a little bit different. The only gateway that I knew about was the Chinese program through the program at Rutgers University, programs that are established all over the country. I did share that a little bit with the board when I interviewed. The district I think that I modeled after was Mount Olive. Mount Olive has utilized the Chinese exchange program for at least 4 or 5 years, and every year they're able to generate revenue based on tuition that has helped balance their budget. And that was one of the things that I talked about in my interview. So that gives a little bit of a backstory, and then I'll fill in a little bit more maybe as we move through the presentation. Do you have
And
specific
most
questions?
private schools, just to piggyback on what
Yeah.
you're saying, most private schools, because they can allow the students to stay for more than 1 year, public
Yes.
schools were only allowed 1 year, oftentimes partner with public schools. So if the public school can attract them for a year, then the private school may pick them up for a couple more years. And the whole goal for the Chinese students and for other international students is to get the students to American universities. So that's really what people would be paying for when
Right.
they're sending their children to the United States, independent of their family. So we used Rutgers program, which is the Confucius Institute, as a vehicle in order to get to China without having the taxpayers to pay anything for a trip other than half of our flight, which was a total of $1,400 for the
And
two of us.
I just want to say real quickly, we keep saying exchange. It's really not an exchange.
Right.
It's a foreign student program.
That's a
We
good
do
point.
not, we don't have any plans for Vernon students to visit China or other countries as students. This is strictly a foreign student program for Vernon Township. So I know, like, we say
That's a
exchange
good
because you
point.
hear that, it's like a common term when you think about that, but there's no exchange. It's a one-way,
Yeah.
it's a
And
it's a
in
one-way
fact,
program.
Yeah, and I think when Mrs. Bucherri and I attended the orientation down at Rutgers, maybe back in April, it was over spring break, I think we were the only school who was really looking at this for tuition. The platform, if you will, for the Confucius Institute really is to promote Chinese language and to promote Chinese culture.
Yep.
And the concern for, or the desire for us really was to bring students here on a tuition basis to generate revenue. I mean, in my personal opinion, the important product here is also diversity for our students. I mean, part of the concern is that when many of our children graduate from Vernon High School, it'd be wonderful if our high school students stayed in Vernon and worked in Vernon and lived in Vernon, and I hope that they can do that. But to live here, you've got to be able to work somewhere. Most of our families work over an hour from here, right? Our families have quite a large commute in cases. And when they leave Vernon or Sussex County, the world doesn't necessarily look the way that it looks in our classrooms, and it's really important for all of us to understand what that might look like outside the walls of Vernon. So the diversity piece is really
Yeah,
important.
very, very important. And also, just one more piece about the private schools, even Pope John, which is a local school, but also Christian School down
Eastern Christian School in
in
Haledon.
Haledon.
Yeah.
All of them now have an office run by a person who actually does this to make sure that they get international students.
Yeah.
So as local as Pope John has a person who actually is responsible for this as a full-time position.
And Eastern Christian School, as well as Donovan Catholic down in Toms River, a large part of their budget is actually provided through the tuition revenue.
Right. Okay. So our goal was we were interested in developing a program where Vernon hosts international students for a year in our community. The first step was being accepted by the Confucius Institute of Rutgers as a means of paying for a trip. So this is the group of people that we were traveling with. There was 3 Confucius Institutes, Kansas State University, Belarus University, and then Rutgers University. So in each of those programs, we were under the umbrella of the university where these people, and it's not the people studied, all of these were teachers and administrators and board members.
Board members, teachers, administrators.
Right.
Yep.
All right, and this is a picture of us outside one of the elementary schools.
Yeah.
We established our program. We talked a lot about Vernon. We spent a lot of time talking about Vernon. We showed them videos. We gave them packets. Each one of these people at the table here received a packet with all of Vernon's programs in it. This was at the Confucius Institute headquarters in Beijing during their open session. So I think, as Karen said, and as Natalie said, it was established right away that we were here for sort of a different purpose than others, and we were here to sell Vernon, and we did it.
And I do want to speak about the Confucius Institute. Our agreement is not with Confucius.
No.
Confucius was simply a vehicle that allowed us to meet the administrators of these schools, to have access to the population in China that has the capability to send their children to America for a year of study. So they gave us that opportunity, and that's where it ends. We don't communicate with Confucius Institute. We have no works and affiliation with
no
Confucius.
partnership.
We're never have contact with them again, because this was simply this is an opportunity they do every year for districts that are interested in promoting Chinese culture, and for varying reasons. There were other school districts there. None of them were interested in a foreign student program. They were interested in learning about Chinese culture. Some of them were geography teachers, administrators. One was a principal whose daughter was studying abroad. So they had varying reasons, and our reason was very specific. But again, our relationship, we don't have a relationship with Confucius Institute. It was simply a vehicle to get us to China.
So we saw elementary schools and we saw middle schools. Our concern about halfway through the trip was we weren't going to be able to see high schools. And the reason was that they were taking the national test. That's the get-go. And that test is so important to high school students that basically schools go into a lockdown mode. Now, just to give you an impression of how impressive the students were, in our hotel in Changchun, which is up in the north near Jilin University, the high school seniors from all over the country, or that various areas in the country, their parents booked them into the hotel for 2 weeks. And every day, and almost 24 hours a day, they would go into this big ballroom in the hotel, and it was a Holiday Inn. So picture a big ballroom in a Holiday Inn. And the students were studying 24 hours, 7 days a week, basically for this test. And then they would go back to the hotel room to sleep, back in the hallway for a couple of hours, and then go back and study for the test. The test decides what national universities they go to. So when we saw that competitive spirit, we realized why it is probably a necessary thing for some parents to pull their children out of the school system and send them to other countries to try to get into a university track system that may be different than the one they have. Remember, you have a population where in the city we were in Beijing, there's 22 million people in an area that's smaller than New York City. And we went by high-speed train through 4 different cities, and the populations were 12 million, 10 million, 11 million, 18 million, till we got to Changchun, which was somewhere around 15 million or something like that. So you were talking about a really, really dense population with very competitive people trying to make sure their children get the best. And there is great wealth in China. That's the other thing that we noticed while we were there. So, we didn't see a high school, but we were able, because we're those type of people, we made connections with people who are actually in high schools, and we have now, and I'll show you in a couple of emails, made connections with high schools that would like to work with us as well. This is the middle school, affiliated middle school of Jilin University. Jilin University is a major university of 40,000 students in the north in Chengcheng, and we were looking to form a sister school relationship with them, and we've had contact back and forth with them. We would like to set that up so that our students in Glen Meadow had someone that they could Skype with or connect with, so that they had the international experience via technology. So that would be a setup for Glen Meadow, and we think it might be a wonderful opportunity. We also saw the Levon School in Beijing, which was obviously an elementary school. That was my guide. That little young lady was a real crackerjack, bilingual, completely bilingual, and able to give a tour to an old man as he walked around the building with her. But again, by having the Chinese students form a relationship with the Vernon peers, it may create a desire 10 years from now, when this young lady's in high school, to basically come to the United States and spend a year in a place that she saw through the presentations that we made.
You might even have a friend already at that point, you know.
Exactly. She may have a friend at the school in Vernon, and that may intrigue her as well. This is what the outside of that elementary school looked like. We were cracking up. I've never seen a better use of tires. Okay, and this is the middle school connected to Jilin University, possible sister school for Glen Meadow, just to get a sense of how big the school was. They had a timeline of Chinese history, and you know ancient Chinese history, of course, how long it would be, but it wound through the entire school. I loved this idea.
Yeah.
I really
that
love
was
this idea. I would
tremendous.
love to do this in one of our
Yes.
schools.
We need
The
to.
timeline of American history. Yeah, it was 5 floors. This school. And this is the music club, and they performed for us while we were there. So we got a sense of their music program, and our music program is far superior. It is. I mean, this is Jilin University, and this is where we were basically centrally located. We would basically be on campus a couple days a week in order to talk about education and also the education system, and talk about ourselves as well. All right, Matt, this is where we were when the children were all teaching each other.
Yeah.
This was a really great scene. This is a group of students, and the teacher was requiring them to teach the lesson to the other students in English. So if you've ever taught a world language or been in a world language class, when the world language teacher asks you to get up and speak in the target language, you can imagine how difficult it was, especially when Americans were standing in the back.
Watching you.
Watching you, but they did a wonderful job. As you can see, the children wear uniforms in school. Now, this is the connection that we are making with the high school. So I wanted you to see that I had written him an email. We have been emailing back and forth. This is a person that we did not see his school, but we met him through another connection, and he came to our final presentation. The final presentation we made was all about education in the United States, education in Vernon, and then we showed a video of our high school and all that we do. Natalie was missing home at that point.
A little teary-eyed.
Yes, he got a little teary-eyed as we were looking at our Vernon kids and thinking of home. And of course, it was a wonderful connection. We made the most of it. We made the most of talking with that principal as well. So this is Yafan, and we've been talking back and forth since June. And he calls me Mr. Charles. And he wants to set up a sister school. And he is the conduit to the principal, because the principal is not bilingual. So this is all about his desire to set up a sister school with our high school. So we have in the works something for Glen Meadow. We have something in the works with Levon for one of our elementary schools or primary schools. And now this would be our connection with the high school. So I've sent him documents for like a sister school relationship. And he is reviewing that. We won't know until the end of August, early September. His semester begins in early August, but that's a very busy time anytime they start school. But he is ready and willing to make it happen. I sent something that we had received and we're not sure whether the Chinese is right, but we did send it in English and Chinese. We're not really sure that we're doing the very best we can. So, I told him I understand completely. We sent our video. We sent links to our webpage. All the things that we did in the presentation he now has. Some of the things he was able to open, other things he was not able to open, but it looks like we're on our way. And he's, like I said, Mr. Charles, he's going to wait till August 12th, so I'll fill the board in at the end of August of where we are with this. I would love to do this by Skype, where we sign a document with them at sister school and they do it at the same time. There's a 12-hour difference, so we're going to have to work something out.
8 o'clock at night, 8
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning.
8 o'clock at night, 8 o'clock in the morning. So, but it would be sort of fun to have the press with that. And again, it's just a connection so that the students can see. We're not going there with just the idea of having sister schools. Sort of seems like a fun idea. But again, it would be seen for the students to see Vernon in a real time. The students would visit Vernon during their holidays for short stays if they were younger. This is a group of middle school and high school students that we met at a museum. They were fascinated with our Americanness. They wanted to know all about basketball, as if I knew England. And they were very interested in Natalie and the ladies and talking to them as well. So, and this is a culture where there's very little differences, so we were different.
You stood out.
And it was an exciting time. So this is what it would look like if we had an exchange. I mean, these were wonderful young people. So that's what we would have them do. The Chinese New Year is around January. They could come then. They also have a different school schedule. They start a little earlier and end a little earlier, so they could come at the end of May, early June. It would be a week or two just for short stays. But if we're going to actually have the program that Ms. Davino has envisioned, then we would have to work with an agency to bring students to school because we have to do the F1 visas. So all of that we would have to work, but Ms. Davino's been working tirelessly on this end, and she's made connections, including one contact that she made in Penn just recently.
The benefit in being at Penn last week was that I was speaking with a woman who's a literacy coach at UPenn. I'll have a conference call with her tomorrow, but when we were speaking, she was telling me that she was getting ready to teach Chinese students the next day, and I said, how wonderful, we're taking a look at this program in Vernon, and we got to talking and said, wouldn't it be wonderful to offer students eventually, when we were ready, to have them come here for a year in Vernon and do a year of high school, and then have that gateway to UPenn as freshmen to go through the literacy program at UPenn. The caveat, of course, is that I don't know that there are many other school exchange or not exchange, I should call them foreign student programs. There are other foreign student programs that give foreign students a gateway to an Ivy League opportunity.
Right.
It would be a tremendous opportunity for us. It would set us apart from the other schools that are trying to establish that relationship with Chinese schools, and it really might make the difference in having students come here on a tuition basis for that university experience once they leave Vernon. So
Based on the competitive nature of the students that we saw, UPenn would be a real success.
And it's worth pursuing. It's worth a conversation, right? And through UPenn, on a side note, I have another colleague in my cohort who works with international students in many other countries, right? So she works with students in Europe and in other parts of the world. So that's a benefit as well, is to really start to have the conversation and see where those conversations take us in regards to utilizing some revenue streams to really help some of the challenges that we're facing financially.
All right, and then step 5, we connect with other schools who have brought students to the U.S. Now, this is completely out of the blue. We did the podcast on Wednesday night, Tuesday night, Monday night.
Monday
I don't remember.
Monday
night.
night.
Monday
But you just
And we
posted, so
we
maybe-
were talking about the program, and one of my ex-students saw the podcast. This is from Christine Ackerman, who is Dr. Ackerman, and she is the superintendent of Chappaqua schools in New York. Now, if you know Chappaqua, that's Little
Yeah.
Clinton's. It's a very wealthy area. Her maiden name is Trodden. And Trotty played on my soccer team, at 1995 soccer team, which was, if she's still watching, we were 20-1. Going into the
Because
state
you made them
championship
run.
game. Yeah. So, anyway, she, as superintendent of a wealthy public district, she has a connection, and she sent it to us, Garrick Yu, who is someone who works with Chappaqua to bring students to the United States. So I brought this out because it's just something that people are doing, school districts are doing, and she's watching our podcast, Natalie.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's nice.
You must have made an impression.
Yes.
Right.
4 miles
So-
before soccer practice.
Well, we were a very good soccer team.
I could see.
Yeah. So anyway, so there are districts all over doing this.
Well,
so.
and I think it's good because we have so many other avenues to get information. You know, we have the Mount Olive model,
Right,
like
right.
you're talking about
Sure.
the connections that you have, the
Yeah.
connections that you've made, using the agency
Yes,
at
that's
no
important.
cost to the
Yeah.
district, which I think
Yes.
is important. So
Yes.
it's not just one avenue that we're
Mhm.
getting the information, there's a lot of different places.
And that they would come here under F1 visa for a full school year, and the right-hand picture is
We
what
did.
what an
That's-
US
we did.
visa would look
So
like.
updating.
Yeah, and the, at the last board meeting, I think in June, the board approved the application to the Student Exchange Visitor Program through the Department of Homeland Security. We did submit that information, we're just waiting to hear back. The next step in the process is they would schedule a visit. They would have to come and do a site visit with us. Then shortly thereafter, although it takes several months, they would, the Department of Homeland Security would issue us, the district, an I-20, and I-20 allows us to issue visas and to work with students in bringing them here. The interesting thing is that, you know, you could apply to the School Exchange Visitors Program through the Department of Homeland Security, but if the connections weren't made in China, right, or the connections weren't made in other countries, we wouldn't be able to get the students. And if I hadn't had the opportunity to speak with the agency, we wouldn't know about the home stays and the home visits. And the agencies, like Mrs. Gutierrez said, the agency is at no cost to the district at all. But they do ensure that children are safe when they are here. They approve they help approve the homes. They're actually certified under another organization, which I have at the table over there, to make sure that there's like another outside agency really watching them to make sure that they're watching after children. Imagine if you were parents and your child overseas, you'd want to be ensured that they were in good homes and in
And
safe
that's
places.
been thoroughly vetted.
Yep, yes, and in fact, my one contact at UPenn who works with the exchange programs in other parts of the world, when I mentioned our agency that we've made contact with, she said they are the best agency that she's ever worked with. She says that they're highly reputable. I haven't spoken the name of the agency because I don't feel that that's valid at this time. But my understanding is that they are very highly regarded when you're talking about foreign exchange programs, so that's a benefit.
So there it is. I'd like to thank Natalie Gutierrez for all of her time and effort on this trip.
Yes,
She
absolutely.
was away from work and away from her family,
And
and
children.
made every effort to be my co-salesperson.
Well, he was, like I said before, Chuck really, he worked hard. I think you were sending emails on the bus.
Yes.
I mean, we left the school, he had his phone out, and he was putting together contacts on the bus, so he
And
definitely,
it paid dividends. I mean, you were
Yes.
making connections before you even came back.
yeah,
Right.
he was in
Yeah.
China
Which is
already
great.
working
Right.
in that. So,
So,
we went there with
okay.
a mission in mind,
Yep.
and, I think we're moving forward.
Okay. Well, thank you, and thank you, Karen, for all your effort on this project.
We have a long way to go, but we're getting
Okay.
there. Good.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Okay, board members, questions for any of the three?
So Karen and Chuck, what are our next steps from here?
Well,
I think it's twofold. I
Yeah.
think one is to set up the sister schools on my end, and then on our end, I think it's to establish the agency and start to work with them about a timeline of how quickly or slowly this process works.
I mean, if we were looking at accepting students as foreign students, we wouldn't have them for 1920, obviously, because that's around the corner, but we could have students for the following year. Part of that is the SEVP, the Student Exchange Visitor Program. That process is somewhat time consuming. In other words, we already submitted the application, but it could take 2 or 3 months before they do a visit. Then after they do the visit, it might take, bless you, it might take another 2 or 3 months after that just to get the I-20. That would be wonderful. That puts us on the trajectory. And then once we have the I-20, that's when we would speak with the agency and say, hey, guess what? Great news. We have the I-20. Chuck would be able to get in touch with his folks and say, great news. We can start really kind of cultivating that program. If the I-20s are received by the end of the school year, you know, we could, if we were so inclined, look at doing the visitation during holidays, either in January or in May or something, on an exploratory basis, so that students have the opportunity to come here
For a
from
short
China
stay.
for a short stay, a couple of weeks, and then go back and report back on, you know, their experiences. And for me, that pilot, if you will, of having them come for a short stay really helps us create the environment for when we have students from another country for a full year, making sure that we're in tune to their needs in school, because that will be a learning curve for us. When we think about the demographics in Vernon, we are not that diverse, right? So we really may have to take a look at equity in our curriculum and in what we do. And that would be a good thing for all of us, in my opinion. So those would be, I guess, the next steps, depending on what happens.
Yeah.
Would you be able to put together, as we get more information about what the tuition rates would be, a really thorough financial analysis of the program for the board and for the community, showing, you know, what our cost per pupil is, but what part of that cost is variable versus fixed, and what the true cost of the, you know, of educating each child would be versus the revenue that we would bring in?
Yes.
That'd be great.
Yes, and I think that's important. I'm glad that you mentioned that, because it is really important that we take a look at this in kind of balancing, you know, do the benefits outweigh, right?
Yeah.
The expense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I agree.
good.
Got it.
Anybody else? Okay. We will move on to approval of minutes. I'd like to do these in one block. So can I have a motion to approve the minutes of number 1 through 6?
Motion.
Mr. Nunziata, second.
Second.
Dr. P, questions or comments on any of the minutes? We can do that on a voice vote. So all in favor say aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Noes, and then Natalie abstains. Go to letter H, correspondence.
Yep, we received correspondence from Gail Del Grasso, Robert Sedlock, Andrew Beckapi, return from maternity leave, and also on your addendum, Rachel Kasia and Tamara Di Battista.
As far as the president's approval, I don't have anything formal. I just want to, you know, I think it's pretty obvious to us as board members. I just want to make the public aware that things don't slow down for our central office in the summertime like they do for most of the school districts. So they've been very active with interviews, very active with planning, not only for this year, but for the following year already, which is very important. We're not concentrating on just what's 6 months ahead of us anymore. We're concentrating on what's going to be happening over the next 3, 4, 5 years. So, you know, they don't take summers off. They work just as hard in the summertime as they do from September to June. So I thank them for their dedication to the community and to the district of Vernon and to the kids of Vernon. So
It's nice.
very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Committee reports?
I can speak to
Kelly,
Buildings
go
and
ahead.
Grounds.
Yep.
So we met yesterday for Buildings and Grounds. I want to thank Mr. Sweeney because he climbed many ladders and went up on the roof.
I was on the 3rd floor of the high school.
Is there a swimming pool there or no?
There is no swimming
There's
pool
no
there.
swimming pool?
There's no pool. I still hadn't have
So
plans.
I was in heels and a dress, so I decided to refrain from that. But he did all that work. So we took about 2 hours to go through the entire building of the high school, and we decided that we feel that every other month we will do the same thing with each school. So we'll rotate schools. Mr. Kepnes will come along with us with Daryl, and we're just trying to minimize the expenditures. So if we see something in the buildings, we get on it ahead of time. We feel that that will help with our budget. We did uncover the fact of.
Ms. Mitchell is a hawk when it comes to seeing windows that have seals that are broken.
Yes, I was like a maniac with it. So we do have numerous windows that need to be replaced in the high school. So we're getting some pricing on that. Mr. Kepnes is going to work on that. And that seemed to be the biggest project that we had besides the projects that we've already approved.
I was on the roof to see the old air conditioning HVAC unit and the plan to replace it. It's a monumental task that we're doing in-house. We're saving a fortune by having the staff that are able to do it.
Is that the one for the core of the building, the auditorium and
No, this is the cafeteria.
On the
cafeteria?
roof of the high
And
school,
it's
right?
the last one of the
the old
original
ones,
yeah.
HVAC units, and it's obvious.
45
that-
years, huh?
It's obvious that's that old.
Yeah, it was pretty
Hmm.
beaten up, so. So
And it
anyway,
will
so
be
that's.
an efficiency savings. We have it's a 60-ton unit up there
Oh, my goodness.
with two 30-ton compressors that either both come on or are both off. We're going to replace it with four 15 tons to get to 60, but each compressor can come on independently
That's great.
as needed.
It's great.
So that's going to be a huge, over time, a savings.
Savings, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess that a unit like that didn't meet the standards for the ESCO project that we did 10 years ago.
If they didn't change it out, then the answer is correct. They couldn't fit it into their savings, that's right. Yes.
And just keep in mind, our staff is actually installing
Yeah.
this unit, so we're not spending what we would spend had we had to have somebody install it as well. So it's a huge project.
Yeah, the crane will be massive. It's relatively expensive because it'll come to the front of the building, yet it has to go, it's got to pick up the unit from the rear of the building. So it needs counterweights, and we're gonna.
It can't get into the back of the building?
No,
So we're
Right.
renting
That
a
is pretty
crane?
big.
and it's
Because
just,
of the cliff.
so, I mean, we will do it right, but we will evacuate that section, God forbid, it drops down, so.
Are we
You
running the
can't get it
crane?
from the,
No,
No,
the
we're
the
hiring
band-
crane
a
operator.
crane
the
company.
parking lot by the band?
No, they've looked, I don't believe so, no. He brought the crane operator up and they together decided, because the crane needs to determine
Right.
length, counterweight, and they picked what they feel is the best place. Yes.
When is that getting done?
11th or 12th of
The
August?
12th or
12th
something
of
like that.
August, yeah.
The parking lot's gonna be closed.
Yes.
You
Right.
won't be able to get up there, so.
And
They
See
wanted
then,
to do it
that.
when there's no.
It is, it's gonna be a massive
Practices are
project.
starting
It's gonna be a
soon.
podcast for Chuck.
Yeah.
I'm going to stand on the roof
gonna
and
be
say,
on the
welcome,
top.
everyone.
I don't know if you'll be able to beat Joe. He went
He was-
right up
he was
that
right
ladder.
up there.
It was very impressive.
I love
Very
that.
impressive.
Good job.
I love
She
that.
was inside, she didn't even see me go up.
We videoed, didn't we?
I did get a picture.
And that can go in the
I
podcast.
didn't video. I did get a picture.
Delete that.
Recreate it.
And the other project that we did complete were the stations for the water. If you want to
oh,
speak to
okay.
that.
Yes.
Okay.
Water cooling.
Oh, you put the
yes.
rest of them in?
There's 3 at the high school, I believe
Awesome.
2 in Glen Meadow, and 1 everywhere else.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome.
Right, and it counts number of bottles saved, which I believe are 20-ounce bottles.
Right.
So we've already saved at the front one, which is the newest one installed, 105 plastic bottles
Wow.
worth.
That's great.
For refilling it. Awesome.
Amazing, unbelievable.
And then it has a filtration system on there as well.
Correct. Yep,
That's serviceable, correct?
Yeah,
absolutely,
it tells you when
yes.
it needs to be replaced.
That's great.
Like your
They are
refrigerator.
very
Yeah,
popular
I
with the
did see
students.
those.
Kids love
Right,
them.
yeah.
Yep.
So,
Good. Anything else, go?
no, that's
Okay.
about it.
Anybody, did you have a finance meeting?
We have not.
Tech?
Not an official tech committee meeting, but we did have the initial meeting to start the strategic plan for the technology.
And it was nice that Matt reported after.
Yes, so Matt recorded it. It's on our own little Schoology group. He also put together all the stakeholders consisting of central office, faculty, staff, students, and parents. So the timeline will probably, we wanted to have it to the board by September. It probably won't get to you guys by September, so it'll be a little bit delayed, but.
It's a 3-year plan.
It'll be a 3-year
Yeah,
plan,
yeah.
yep, so
Yeah.
we're working.
You did a terrific job.
the 3-year plan, it's not 3 years to get to us, it's gonna be.
I'm hedging my bet.
So you're running
Just-
for reelection?
I'm not gonna come. No, of course he'll have it to you.
You have special service?
Special services is meeting Wednesday next week, and negotiations, we will be scheduling soon.
Oh, that's gonna kick up in the fall.
Mm-hmm,
Okay.
yes.
And anybody have anything else? Oh, all right, we'll move on to public participation. This section is for items on the agenda only and any student comments. There is a statement there to be read to protect yourself. If you have anything you'd like to state, please step up to the podium, state your name, section of town that you're from, and you will have 5 minutes to state what you want to state.
I'm good. I'm waiting till after.
Hi, everybody. My name's Matthew Conway. I live over here in Highland Lakes. I just wanted to come down and just curious about, we're talking about the budget and the revenues
Mhm.
for it and how we're doing that. You know, my tax bill that I just got was about a $900 increase. And I know a lot of it has to do with schools, and I just really wanted to come ask you guys what is being done to, you know, cut expenses in order to reach the budget, so that we're not looking at these next year and the year after that, and the year after that. These are substantial increases that affect the quality of life of the residents of Vernon, and I would just really like to know what are the plans to cut spending.
Okay, so I'll start. I don't know how much you've been following as far as what's happened with the state aid.
Oh, no,
Coming
I
to us, okay.
100%, yeah.
So we have a loss of about approximately $10 million coming to us over the next 7 to 8 years. That escalates for the first 5 years, and then the 6th year, it's only like $400,000. One of the reasons why the tax levy jumped up this year is because we were told by the state that in order for us to get any type of relief from the loss of state aid, we would need to use our cap bank that we had. Cap bank is anything, every year we're allowed to go to 2%. If we don't go to 2%, or even if we cut a budget, we're allowed to bank that for 3 years. In 2016, I think we actually had saved $2.6 million off of that bank cap, and our total bank cap for the 3 years that we had was 3.6. That 2.6 was going to be expiring this year, so if we didn't use it, we would lose it. We did eliminate, correct me if I'm wrong, 32 positions this year. We did eliminate 32 positions this year. Since 2012, we've eliminated about 80 teaching positions. If I remember correctly, I think that number was brought up a few months ago. It's right around 80. We are
More than just teachers, though. I just wanted to be clear. Right.
staff. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right. So, you know, the finance committee is looking at many different options for not only short-term but long-term solutions as well. We do have a demographic study that we're going to be going over tonight. That's on the agenda. We asked for that in February. It came in last month, and we got it. It's the first chance we've had a chance to review it. So once our cap bank is expired, the most we could do is 2% onto our tax levy. Also, as far as your tax bill goes, I know there's been quite a lot of confusion about it. That was an estimated tax bill for the third quarter of the year, and I believe, from my understanding, those estimates tend to be about 3 times the amount of what your taxes are actually going to go up. Every single year, we get an estimated tax bill because the budget for the state is not done. The problem is, in the years that we were only seeing a $20 increase on our taxes, the estimated tax bill was only going up $60. People weren't noticing. Because of the jump this year in the school taxes, it was magnified even more. I know a lot of people feel that it was from the reassessment. It wasn't from the reassessment. Reassessment's not even done in the town yet. So, so to get back to your original question, everything that happens in this district is being scrutinized. We do have a considerable different makeup on the board that we've had in the last decade or so. And the finance committee is being very proactive. I would think. I wouldn't even say it's reactive. I would say it's proactive at looking at everything that's happening for the next 4 or 5 years in the district.
And then the other thing too is I emailed you all this morning, I think you got it.
Oh, okay, now the name
and
connects.
I do, I appreciate, how quickly you guys responded, that was good to see. I'm just curious though, I mean, with what I saw here, and I have to just be frank, I don't have kids, so my whole thing here, I'm here just because of the tax and the budget, and that's what I wanted the board to concern with. But I'm just curious, is any of those items gonna be looked at? I mean, that was a pretty involved report from the Senate
For the
on
Senate.
Homeland Security of some pretty alarming things
Yeah.
I saw in there of what that program, that specific program that you're bringing in here.
Yeah.
I want to know if you guys are going to be making that available.
I think Natalie
Yeah,
and
we're-
Chuck kind of said it. We
we're
really
not.
aren't using
really,
Confucius
no.
at all.
Yeah.
We're
The-
not bringing
the only
that in.
thing
You have Confucius all over.
Yes,
there.
but Confucius was the program that allowed us to go over there for only $1,400. If we were to go over there on our own to try to start this program up, it would be probably
couldn't.
tens of thousands of
We couldn't,
dollars.
yeah.
But
Yeah.
we never would have done
Yeah,
it now.
so-
We wouldn't know what schools to go to.
Right.
We wouldn't
Yeah.
have the
There
connections.
is there is nothing that's
Yeah.
signed with Confucius.
Nothing.
More than
Nothing.
likely, Confucius will not be utilized or anything.
We'll never talk to them again.
Yeah, I mean,
Well,
In fact,
we will
never
never talk
had
to
any
them again.
contact with Confucius. We had contact with Rutgers,
Mm-hmm.
but not with Confucius affiliates in
America,
in-
anyway,
right.
yeah,
You
no.
know, so there's no agreement
No,
with the
I can't
Confucius
stress that
Institute.
enough. There is,
Yeah.
I am very well aware what
Oh, I
Confucius
think
is.
but just from how that information was conveyed to me, like I
Sure.
had gotten
You
an
could Google
alert
it
from,
and-
from YouTube that you guys put a new
Mhm.
thing up, and that's the only reason I found out about
Right,
it.
right.
And then just seeing what you guys had presented on there
Yeah.
and that, and you start, what is this Confucius? What is
that
this?
was the
No,
that was the starting point
You
for
know,
us.
but I'm
And-
letting you know,
yeah,
that's where it
yeah.
led me.
Sure.
And I think
You know?
that's-
Yeah, no, but
Roger,
I
yeah.
did that research. I read
Right.
about it. I know what Confucius is before I went, but again, like we are not having any agreement with Confucius. We have no relationship with
No,
them.
I
fact-
understand,
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, but,
Yeah.
Me just looking at that,
Perception.
I can't imagine that's probably not
yeah.
happening.
No, you're
Okay,
you're
I
absolutely
understand
right.
what you're
I
saying,
mean,
yeah.
we really don't have an agreement with Rutgers either. I mean, the reality
No.
is, once this trip happened, there's no agreement with Rutgers. We applied for the program, they accepted us based on the interest that we had in creating a foreign student program here. And now the agreements really are between us and those schools, but the only way that would have happened would have been through this vehicle. So that's the, part of it is the country, right? I mean, you're not talking about traveling to England and having a different relationship there than we have with China, right? So you can't
We
just
needed
travel.
someone to get us in the
Yeah.
door. Yeah.
We totally appreciate your concern, and
Definitely.
we totally appreciate you
Yeah.
sending us the
Yeah.
information you
Yeah.
did.
And please continue to do so.
Yeah.
Like I said, but
Yep.
I just said, like, that's
Yeah.
how, like, I think
Yeah.
maybe in the next video, maybe you wanna explain.
Yeah,
that,
yeah,
why
yeah,
you're not using it.
Yeah.
Yes,
And
yeah.
I mean, I can't
Yeah.
speak for anybody else on the board, but the article that you shared was one that I saw probably back in March or April or so. So, and I probably got it same way you did. I Googled it because I
Yeah.
wanted to find out
Right, what
about
was it?
the rates to get people over there and everything, and that was there, so.
Yeah, no, that's just my two cents, I appreciate
No,
it.
thank
No,
you.
I
I
appreciate it.
appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank
Have a good
you.
night.
Thanks for coming.
You're more than welcome to stay for the next 3 hours to watch the rest. Zoe, you're good?
I have to wait.
Okay, I'll close it to the public. We will move on to letter L, superintendent's report. Ms. DeVito?
Yes, on superintendent's report, there are some items on the regular agenda, and then there are a couple of additional items on the addendum. We're pleased to announce VTHS students as district artists for the summer months. Their artwork is being displayed at the board office, and if you have a chance to take a look, all of the artwork over there is work for the farmer's market
Yep.
that our student artist did. It's absolutely beautiful, and I want to say it was done by our high school graphic arts department, right?
Yes, for the
Yep.
advertising for the Vernon
Farmers Market.
Farmers
Yeah.
Market,
nice.
which is
Really
new.
did a beautiful
Yep.
job.
Some of
So-
them are
Saturday.
very creative.
This
It
Saturday?
was rescheduled,
Saturday.
right?
Yeah.
Rescheduled.
Okay.
I'm gonna move on to letter B. Letter B, the following is a list of 2019-20 VEF, Vernon Education Foundation grants that were awarded fully. And for the members of our public and members at home, grants are really important, and we're really lucky to have an organization like the Vernon Ed Foundation that's working to provide some support for our budget. You know, this is something we're talking about all the time, that we have financial challenges. So at Glen Meadow Middle School, their program Glen Meadow Grows, they donated $802.64. Lounsbury Hollow School Generation Genius was $95, and Cedar Mountain Primary School, they did a sensory hall project at $901.27. Also, there were some other grants that were awarded partially, so the Ed Foundation also supports some of the other wonderful programs we have here in the district. One of them is the Vernon Township High School Robotics Program, where the foundation donated $500. The robotics program is almost entirely funded by the young ladies and gentlemen who work in that program. They do a tremendous job. And they seek donations from businesses, not just local, but out into other parts of the county. And Glen Meadow Middle School, the wonderful musical they performed this year, Sound of Music, the Vernon Ed Foundation donated $500 for that as well.
Before you go on, I just want to put a little plug in for the Vernon Education Foundation.
Absolutely.
That is a very small organization. It's
Yes.
only run by,
2 or 3
Tara.
people.
yeah, and, you know, a
One.
few people. And they put on Our Standing every year. Granted, you know, Our Standing is a district-wide event that pulls in a lot of people. I mean, this place was
Packed.
buzzing back
Yeah.
in June. And, you know, they do an awful lot. I was one of the founding members of Vernon Education Foundation, so I know where it started from and where it's to now, and where Tara has taken it is just,
Yep.
It's tremendous.
she puts an awful lot of time into it, and she should be recognized for it, so,
Yes.
kudos to her.
Thank you.
Yes, we are very lucky to have them, and certainly if anybody's looking to get involved,
Yes.
I'm sure that they could use the support. May I move on to letter C? Letter C is Miss Robin Ballard, attorney with Schneck, Price, Smith, and King LLP, will be conducting 504 and discipline training for administrators and staff members in August. I've spoken a little bit about some of the things that are happening in August during administrative training. In addition to anti-bullying, we've got a lot of HID stuff that we're working on. I also have administrators attending restorative practices on discipline next week, and it's really important to take a look at making sure that we're equitable in how we discipline and learn to have appropriate skills when dealing with students with disabilities, students with 504 plans, and we have someone coming in to work with us in that regard in August. So I'm excited and pleased that we're going to be broadening the scope of the professional relationships that our administrators have with our students, particularly in the special needs population. Can I continue?
You have letter D.
Yep.
Yes. Letter D on the superintendent's report, which is on the addendum. This is NJSLA for the folks at home. It's the New Jersey Student Learning Assessment, the score release and schedules for students. This is rather important. The state of New Jersey has begun releasing those scores. This is the test formerly known as PARC from the past spring. The scores are presently embargoed. What that means is that we cannot release that information to parents until September 9th, 2019.
Which is much later than in
Yes.
past.
And of course, it's after school begins.
Right.
So we will use the confidential scores for scheduling in our buildings for the 1920 school year and release the test scores to the parents as soon as the state allows. However, that does put us in a little bit of a bind with communicating with parents, but I really wanted to make sure the board and the community was aware of that. And of course, the public presentations on the scores, like was done last year in August, will happen at our September 12th meeting. So the board and any members of the public, of course, are welcome to hear the scores and how we did as a district and the presentations that will be made by the administrators. But it's unfortunate that they're embargoed until September 9th. And we don't know why the state
What is the
did
reasoning?
that.
We don't know why?
They
Well,
released
the-
the scores piecemeal. We got the first general scores. They haven't released the student scores. We're waiting on those. Everything seems to be delayed this year. But in the past, we had to letter out to parents. Everybody knows this. We had to letter out to parents
Yeah.
first week, second week in August at the very latest. And everybody knew why, knew their children's scores, and we could answer questions. So the fact that it overlaps into the start of the school year, we were just concerned about that because, we may be using the scores for their schedules. So
Yeah.
we wanted everybody to know.
Letter 2.
You have
Hold on.
recommendations.
I want to,
Questions?
no, I just want to add something. Since this is kind of the time that we do recognize students, I do want to mention Zach Mountain, who is I believe he's going into 8th grade at Glen Meadow. He was on the track team there,
Oh, yeah.
and he qualified for the AAU in Raleigh this coming week. He's unattached. He's not a part of any type of club other than our track team here at middle school. He actually qualified for 3 events, which is amazing. He qualified for the 800 where he's seated 29th out of 90. The 1500th, he's seated 60 out of 120. And the high jump, he's seated 4th out of 66. And, this kid is turning in, I want to say a 5:15 mile now, at the age of 12 or 13 years old.
Wow.
So it's really good to see, and for a kid to be to get to the AAUs in one event's a feat, much less three, and not to be part of any type of club is really, really
On his own.
good. So I just wanted to put a congratulations out to him, and good luck this week down in Raleigh.
We'll reach out to Zach to see if we can get some pictures for the
Yes.
podcast. We are going to be interviewing Mr. Saganek on the podcast about the
Unified
inclusive unified
Yeah.
track, so this will be a perfect event. So we'll try to reach out to the mountains and get some pictures.
Okay.
That'd be great.
Okay.
Number 2A, recommendations, and to note for the board, there is a table on your regular agenda with a couple of additional items on the addendum. So 2A, it is recommended that the board approve the following faculty, staff resignations, retirements, terminations, leaves, transfers, assignments, changes, appointments, stipend, salary adjustments, student teaching mentoring as listed. However, I do need to make a change to that. In the addenda, I'm sorry, not in the addendum, in the regular agenda, we have 3 pending appointments for assistant football coaches that need to be removed at this time. They will reappear in August. We are waiting on completion of paperwork, so they can't be approved until they,
There's 3?
Yes,
it's
Chris
Chris
Rivera.
Patrick Orlando.
Chris Rivera, Patrick Thompson, and
Oh.
Orlando.
I see 4.
Did I
Oh,
miss
2,
two
I'm sorry, there's
resignations?
2 resignations.
No, those are
Right, it wasn't
resignations.
resignations,
That's the
it was
reason for the.
Okay, I
Yeah,
got it,
second
okay,
appointments.
gotcha,
Right.
okay.
They will come back in August, but we are, it is pending completion of
Okay.
some paperwork, so.
Title.
What's
Okay,
that? Yeah.
can I, before we go any further then, there's nothing else that needs to be removed or changed
No.
before we get a motion? All right, motion for 2A, please.
Motion?
Ms. Bucieri, second.
Second?
Dr. Peak, questions or comments? I have one quick question, and I have to find it here. It had to do with, it's on the addendum. And I can say names, right, because they're.
They're on there.
Okay, so Beth Jansen is a non-tenured interim replacement. She's starting at BA2, but Erin Stickle is a non-tenured interim replacement also, but she's $100 for her first 19 days. Why?
We are honoring Beth Jensen because she worked for us last year in
Okay.
maternity leave, and now she's working for us again this year with the maternity leave.
Okay, thank you.
Same position, but it's still a maternity leave,
Okay. Anything else?
leave of absence.
Yeah, I have a question about the summer curriculum pay scale.
Summer curriculum pay scale.
There's 2 appointments for summer curriculum work, and there's a remarkable difference in the per diem. And I just wanted,
Is that on the addendum or the regular one?
The regular one?
Oh, I see, top page,
Regular one,
top of the
right.
page.
I mean, it's just, I should have asked this sooner, but I didn't.
If any kind of curriculum work is getting done, it's 125 a day. I'm not exactly sure, Scott Wallach gets per diem 5 days. I don't know why we have summer curriculum work, it's really security work. He's paid per diem. The rest of our folks, for the most part, except for a few people, are paid 125 a day as per the agreement.
So that may not be summer curriculum?
No, Scott's doing
And I
security
will,
work.
thank you, I'll amend that in the minutes, that is not summer curriculum, that's him preparing for September.
Scott is
Very good.
preparing
Yes,
for September.
Absolutely, he's not
doing-
writing curriculum, right.
No.
If it's curriculum work, it's
Yeah, I was
125.
wondering if we had security curriculum that I wasn't aware of.
Right.
He's training the aides, he's entering the students into the database, he's meeting with the administrators, so we're preparing.
So that's just a mistake
It
in
is,
the
it
curriculum.
is,
Okay.
and I'll correct that in the minutes.
Thank you.
Anything else for anybody? Okay, roll call.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mrs. Coglin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Because this
Yes.
will be a resolution in
Motion carries.
August.
Okay, let it be.
Letter B, it is recommended that the board approve professional development travel that complies with the provisions of New Jersey statutes annotated NJSA 18A:11-12, attachment A.
Motion for 2B, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second.
Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Cobbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Peak,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri.
Yes.
Mr. Sparta.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter C, it is recommended that the board approve the harassment, intimidation, and bullying, school safety, and random drug testing reports, attachment B.
Motion for 2C, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second.
Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Cobbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Peak,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter D, if anyone watched our June meeting, you saw that we worked collaboratively to develop a new school district vision statement, which is as follows. We envision a passionate, evolving learning community focused on developing agile and resilient individuals. Our students will acquire skills and create knowledge to achieve personal academic success and become responsible, solution-minded global citizens. We will prioritize the overall wellness of our students and provide opportunities to support the growth and development of the whole child. We will optimize our resources so that students will reach their maximum potential in a safe, engaging, inclusive, challenging, and nurturing environment. Our students, parents, staff, the Board of Education, and the community are responsible for sharing, pursuing, and achieving this vision.
Motion for 2D, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak,
Second.
Mr. Sweeney, second. Questions or comments? Just want to thank everybody for taking the time to do this, although it doesn't seem to be much. It's what our district is about, so thank you.
Good statement.
Roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Peak,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mrs. Cobbin,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter E, it is recommended that the board approve all certified staff as bedside tutors for the 1920 school year.
Motion for 2E, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second.
Ms. Bucieri, questions or comments? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Peak,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri.
Yes.
Mrs. Cobbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter F, it is recommended that the board accept the QSAC Quality Single Accountability Continuing Report from the New Jersey Department of Education, designated Vernon Township School District as a high-performing district, attachment C.
Motion for 2F, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second.
Ms. Bucieri, questions or comments? Roll call vote?
Dr. Peak,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mrs. Cobbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Congratulations to our staff.
Yes,
Good job.
nice job. Letter G, it is recommended that the board approve the following bylaws, policies, regulations for a second reading. They begin at the bottom of page 5 and continue through the bottom of page 9.
Motion for 2G, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second.
Ms. Bucieri, questions or comments? Just remember, after the second reading, they will become enacted. Roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney,
Yes.
Mr. Nunziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mrs. Cobbin,
Yes.
Mrs. Luther,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Peak,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Letter H, it is recommended that the board approve Youth Advocate Program, Inc. to provide outpatient clinic services from the high school pending approval of their application to the state.
Motion for 2H, please.
Motion.
Ms. Bucieri, second.
Second.
Dr. Peak, questions or comments?
We already have it in there.
Did I hear? Okay.
Youth Advocate Program, outpatient clinic. I vaguely recall this, we approved the application, right? Or is this what we're doing now?
I think we approved the application at the last meeting.
Right.
And I know I sent the flyer out to folks the day after the meeting. Right now, we are waiting to hear back from Youth Advocate Program to see if they can provide the services to us. We've applied for the program, we have not heard back yet. My concern is that, you know,
When we hear back.
when we hear back, you know, we want to be able to kind of hit the ground running and not have to
Okay.
worry about if it makes it in time for another meeting. You know, what if we get approval August, 25th, we still want to be able to open the doors in September.
Because I recall, if I recall correctly, we agreed to the application, we just wanted to learn more about it.
Yes.
So just so I understand, we're approving using it before fully knowing about it. Because we discussed the application, which we all agreed to, and we don't have the approval back yet, but we don't know a lot about it yet. We're just still waiting. So we're approving its use without knowing a lot about it yet? I guess that's my question.
Well, we could delve into more of the details, at the August meeting for discussion. We still have time to decide not to use the program. I think the request at the last meeting was for me to send the flyer so that everybody could see it. I didn't receive any additional feedback from the board, but I may have missed something because I sent it and then the week after that I was not here. So, forgive me if I missed something from the board requesting additional information in regards to this particular program.
Anything else? Roll call vote?
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mrs. Coghlan?
No.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Motion carries.
There's an eye on.
Yep. Letter I, it is recommended that the board approve the creation of an assistant cheerleading coach stipend at $2,836. There are 27 students trying out for the team. We are concerned about safety with stunting and performing, locker room coverage. The ratio of students to coach is higher in this program than in soccer, football, and other sports.
Motion for 2I, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second?
Ms. Bucieri, questions or comments?
Will this also be like a JV coach?
Yes,
Yes,
Yeah, I don't think they have JV.
yeah.
they
Um,
don't,
right,
but
But they,
Yeah, but
they do have football and competition. It's a full year program.
Okay.
I'm sorry, just,
I'm sorry.
Is this
No,
a
that's
full year
okay, 'cause
stipend or just a fall stipend?
this is a fall
Fall
stipend.
stipend, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
So for the football season.
how many coaches are there currently? Because I don't have
One.
children.
One.
I just one. Okay.
Do we have a general rule, or is there a general rule for the number of participants and the number of?
When I talked to Mr. Foley this afternoon about this concern, he was saying that, for his soccer coach, based on the number, we did ask him that question, based on the numbers from football and soccer and others, it's usually a ratio of one coach to 15 to 16 athletes. And he just thought this is high and they're worried about stunts and locker room coverage.
So this is how many are trying out? Do they have cuts?
Well, if they have a
No, but I think it's
second coach,
24.
I think that there would be less cuts.
And I
Some
don't
more
want
kids
to,
would-
I don't want to
Yeah, I
quote,
can't-
but
I
I think
can't.
even when you look at a squad, I want to say it's like 24, 25. I mean, now don't quote me because I don't know that much about it, but, in order to field the team, they'd be looking at a certain number of ladies or men in pyramids and different, drill coordination so that they could field their team appropriately. The average is usually 24 or 25. These numbers are up from last year, which is good, because I think at one time we probably had a pretty vibrant cheerleading program, and I know that Mr. Foley's been really focusing on trying to revitalize that, as well as football. I do have a concern over the supervision of one coach with 27 people, especially with the level of physical, difficulty that some of these young people are engaged in, so.
So this is just for the fall?
But
Is
I
that what
I
the
think
bill's
if I,
recommendation
if I recall, most of this is based off of the competition part of it, not so much the cheering part of it at the football
The
games.
stunting is-
Because
yeah.
at the football games, there's not 24
No.
girls cheering.
A lot. I know
I should have, there's
less
not
than-
24 kids cheering. Can't
It's that,
use the
it's
gender.
that,
Well,
So, I think it's more based off of the competition, because if you watch the competition on TV, there's
It's a large
25, 30 kids,
Yeah.
and I think that's what it's based off of.
So then it would be year round, year long.
I think the competition season ends December, if I remember correctly, because there was a discussion about this last year about the situation that was there, and I think the competition ends in December.
If
Yes.
I remember correctly, only because at Kittatinny, my girls did this. They'll do football through the football season, then it does go into their competition season, which in Kittatinny, we went through March.
Oh,
It
okay.
depends on how they
Okay.
do.
Yes.
So if the students continue to progress, they could end up, look, I mean, nationals is March. You know, so
Right.
it would depend on how they do. You know, the supervision is a concern when you've got this level of athleticism and this number of students, you know, with one coach. And that was why
Yeah.
Mr. Foley brought it to our attention and we put it on the agenda for
I just want
discussion.
it to be clear as to what
Right,
the position is. I think it's
Sure.
more than just fall.
Yeah.
yes, I think so
Yeah.
too.
So are we expecting this person then for this amount of the stipend to do this through possibly March?
You know, if we approve it tonight, we have to
We have
post
to
it,
clarify
right?
that,
So
yeah. We need to
in the
clarify that.
posting, we would clarify, you know, that if this, and I don't have the stipend guide.
That seems very low, actually.
It does seem low. That could be
I
for one
presume that's a
season.
step on the guide, right?
Right, but
It's step one.
but is it one season? Is it like a fall?
That's
If
what
we're
I'm,
going
Most
into
of the
March,
sports
you're
are
talking about almost
a
2
one-season
seasons.
stipend.
I mean, you know, then.
If you're going
then-
through March, that's 2 seasons.
Right, then
Fall,
likely
winter.
I would be coming back. I
Okay.
just don't wanna, I don't wanna, you know.
I just
give any
texted
kind
Mr.
of
Foley,
false-
so maybe he'll.
Whatever, but my point is that, look, is there a likelihood that there's another stipend for like a January to June, like a spring stipend? Cause this is low for a full
Mhm,
year, Chuck,
mhm.
don't you agree?
I agree.
Yeah, I think you're right. You know, we could do one of two things, right? Because as we're talking about it, we haven't posted for it yet. In the posting, we can clarify and see if this is a fall-only stipend, and then we post for the fall.
Well, let me ask you a
And then-
question.
Sure.
The head coach, how is the head coach set up?
The head coach, I think, is I don't know.
I think the head coach is 2 seasons, and I think that this would be 2 seasons, but
Yeah,
I'm
but the
checking
head
with.
coach is
I'm not
more than
adverse
that.
to the
Yeah.
position.
No, I get it.
No.
I just want,
Just
you want
clarity.
clarity, sure,
Can we-
absolutely.
I
Can I-
do, I understand.
Can I motion to table the,
Okay, so we have a motion to table. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ms. Bucieri, there's no discussion after a table motion, so we go right to a vote. So we have a motion on the table. Roll call vote.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Are we voting
You're
to
voting to
table?
table.
To table,
Oh.
thank you, because I'm thinking, what do I want to do? Yes, I want to table.
Mrs. Conlon?
Are we allowed to ask a question?
No,
now?
not after a motion to table, you're not.
Ask a question still.
You can't. Once
What
there's a
either
motion to
what, table
table,
it or
Robert
not?
rule, there's no discussion after that.
we can just vote no.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say no, I'm not gonna table it, or postpone it.
Right.
Mrs. Winkler?
No.
Mrs. Mitchell?
No.
Dr. P?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
No.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
No.
So now are we allowed to talk about it?
Yes.
So the motion went down, right?
I got some, I
So
got
now
So
it
it's
goes, now it
table
goes back to
Wednesday.
discussion.
And I think
Very
Dr.
good.
McKay's
Got it.
on the phone
Yeah.
with Mr. Foley, and I think Mr. Ketnis has
Okay.
some.
I do.
Joe, your questions?
Oh, I'm
They
sorry.
may need the position soon.
That's what I'm
Right.
saying.
Yeah,
I
that's what
That's
totally
why I didn't want to
understand.
table it.
I
That's
totally
why I didn't wanna
understand,
table it
absolutely.
So that's,
I feel like we
That
should at
makes
least
sense.
start it for the fall, and that will give us another month
But
maybe.
if we're gonna start it for the fall,
We need to know
We
now
need-
because they
well-
start practicing in mid-August.
But
Yeah.
that's what I
if
mean,
we
is
need to
start it for the fall
fall,
when
then
we
we have
post
to amend
it.
this motion so it just says
Now.
fall.
Let me give you some quick
So-
information. There's a head cheerleading stipend. Step 3 is 4,091. There's an assistant cheerleading stipend. Step 3 is 3,291. Then there's a competitive cheerleading stipend.
And how much is that one?
And step 3 is 2,661. So my
this is only
assumption would
step
be,
one.
Why are you at step 3?
I-
Head,
Sorry.
that's head.
You just found it.
Do we have
It's
well,
not even
step
we have
one.
step
Wait,
1,
that's
2, and
yeah.
3. So I'm giving you the higher of the.
No, but so we would be looking at step 1 for 1920,
For
if you don't
head
mind, I'm sorry,
cheerleader,
Steve. For which one
Assistant.
are you
We want
reading to us?
assistant.
okay,
Assistant.
yes.
Okay.
So-
He said that he's willing to, it can be the small amount, whatever we're choosing as the amount. That's the number I was given by Mary Grace. That can be for fall and winter for the assistant.
So.
For
do we-
fall and winter,
Yeah,
is
for
that
the assistant.
inclusive of, competition?
Yes, that's what he said. He
That's
said
enough?
because the assistant would be working with the head coach, and the head coach has most of the responsibility. So he says, I don't want to be greedy, I just want to make sure the kids
Yeah, you
are
want
safe.
supervision.
That seems like
So-
a lot.
That's something for
But wait
competitive.
a second, I have a question from a contractual standpoint.
Yep.
That's what I'm concerned about too.
From a contractual
I
standpoint,
wanna hear what Steve has to come.
if it goes, let's say, by season,
Right.
There's a big disparity
and
there.
now
I'm gonna ask them.
Steve just said there's, excuse my lack of term, like a sport cheering, and then there's a comp cheering,
Right.
correct?
That's my
So-
point, that there's two stipends for the
Mhm.
Can you
Yeah, and I
read-
don't want this person, whoever takes the
Yeah.
position, to contractually
Yeah.
not get what they
Can you,
deserve.
can you read what's in the contract for 1920,
Right, that's my
step
problem.
one?
I'm not getting
Oh.
a year on what I have,
Oh, okay.
yes,
It's not in there?
the year now.
Can I ask a question? That Justin actually just pointed out, and I thought about it too. So we have assistant coaches for other sports, their step one is significantly higher
Right.
than an assistant coach for cheerleading.
It seems
So
odd.
what is that based on?
I can explain that, I learned that during negotiations.
Okay.
It was through negotiations what they have on their guide.
You're right.
So
I'll
there's
be
a,
asked that question.
so it's not just a step one, it's a step one for cheerleading,
Right.
step
Different
one for
sports have
soccer.
different,
Yes, they do.
Yeah.
pace,
Do
yeah.
the cheerleaders practice every day of the week like the football players?
Because that's arbitrary, it doesn't make any difference.
I know,
So
but.
there is
it's just-
already a guide for assistant cheerleading.
Yes.
We're not
Okay, so we
creating the
can't-
position.
No.
So this isn't really,
The question is the guide, is it broken out by season, or is it just, does it just say head cheerleading coach, assistant cheerleading coach?
That's what it says. What I
And so-
don't have is the difference in year.
Yeah, well, because the guide, if I'm not mistaken, for athletic coaches at the high school is per year, I mean, I've seen the guide, I don't have it with me, but, right, isn't it broken down where it's like, it's a 3-year contract, we're in the second or the third year, so it would be like an 18, 19, and 19, 20, and a 20, 21, and for the 19, 20 school year, it would say what that number is, right?
Right, it's just the pay scale for coaches.
Right.
And they get I'm, off the top of my head, I'm not sure if they get the same amount all 3 years, or if there is, let's say, a 1 to 2% increase
No, I
off the
think
top
it
of my
does go up.
head.
It does go up.
It does go up?
It's just
Yeah.
like
That's why I
a-
need
Three
Incrementally.
steps.
Okay, so it
Three
goes up
steps.
incrementally. But
Yep,
if
three
there's
steps.
3 steps or 2
Yes,
steps?
3.
Three, that's what I
Right,
thought.
because it's a
Mhm.
3-year
But
contract.
the thing I'm thinking, and again, I don't have the contract in front of me, if, let's just use football, because that goes, fall for playing, granted you have August and then whatnot, but if you're a football coach, that's for the fall. Where does this begin and end?
Exactly.
Right,
Because I don't want this person, whomever comes and accepts this position, he or she should have a begin and end, or shall we say, a season. That shouldn't just span straight across. If, let's say, like Joe was saying, this person was for the fall, and also, this person may also be doing comp, like that's 2 different steps. Again, I could be getting into the union's
Right.
issues, but I wanna make sure we're equitable as well.
But there is a section that says competitive cheerleading, right, Steve, is that what you
Yes.
said? And one that says,
That
so.
was my point.
Yeah.
Right, but that's what I'm
If we're
saying,
worried
so
about
this
equity,
isn't specified.
you'd have to
There's
take the
two
sum of the two.
separate-
It's practically an all year, if it's the same person,
Then they would get the
they're getting
2.
significantly more.
I think, and I don't wanna, you'll tell me what Bill is thinking, I think that Mr. Foley's talking about, for now, moving into the fall, right? And basically the football season where the cheerleaders are supporting the football team and our students at the games and those kind of things. I think what we're looking at right now is the assistant cheerleading coach for the fall. Would the board consider a motion that's amended that said something like, it's recommended that the board approve the assistant cheerleading coach stipend as reflected in the negotiated agreement for the fall season?
Season of
Do you understand what I'm
1920.
saying? Because then we're not violating the I agree with you, we don't
Right.
wanna violate what's in the contract, like if it says,
You could be violating the contract, because there's nothing there that breaks out a season.
but
It's- no,
there's
it's not.
not?
No.
It's,
It
What does
just
it
says,
say?
it
But
says
you have the
cheerleading
contract.
and competitive cheerleading,
So
correct.
say that again, Steve?
There's a head cheerleading, there's a competitive cheerleading.
and is
And
there an
there's no
assistant
assistant?
cheerleading?
There is an assistant cheerleading at
And
2836.
then that's
So
where it
we're
came
not,
from.
we're not,
Oh, okay,
this
then we're
recommendation
fine.
is for creating a position. We already have the
Yeah.
position.
Yeah, then we're okay.
So we don't,
So we don't even have to worry
And
about
how
this?
the assistant cheerleading coach is used is as per the head coach and the athletic director, right?
So,
So we don't need
But we're
that.
not
we
in
don't-
violation
When
of
you're
the
hiring,
contract.
you wanna hire somebody for that.
Right,
So
right,
I'm just
right.
gonna
That's
post
when you
it.
have somebody, then you
Just
will.
Then bring it back to us and, yeah.
Okay.
Because the
we-
position's
Okay,
already
it's already
exists.
there.
Yeah,
So I
was
make a
under the
motion
impression
to
it was-
disregard this municipal.
You got it.
We
Yeah,
don't need it.
And then you could post for it.
Why not just,
right.
okay.
Okay, sorry for the confusion.
No, that's all right.
That's fine. I'd rather be thorough and make
No,
sure.
I agree.
So, Joe, what's your motion?
My motion is that we don't act on letter I.
We don't have to.
Well, they
we
just
can
have to
vote.
pull,
Pull
they just
it.
have to pull the recommendation. We don't have to even have.
Well, no, you can't, because there's already a motion and a second.
Oh,
So
You
just
okay.
can't
vote it
pull
down.
something after a motion
Oh.
and
So
a
we'll just
second.
vote it down.
So what would you say, no?
Yeah, just say no.
yeah, but if we say no, can they start working?
Yes,
Yeah.
because this
We
says
already
it was
have the position
recommended the board
created.
approve the
Okay.
creation of,
Okay.
I was informed that we
You can-
didn't have one, but we
You
do.
can- But if you
As
vote
per the
yes,
bylaw.
it's already created, so it doesn't, if you vote
He's
no,
He's making
Again.
sure, he's like, I'm gonna make sure before we.
Everybody abstain.
Because because a stipend exists in the contract, does that mean that the position
the one could,
by default exists?
well, but the one
Good
concern I
question.
have is we approve stipended positions every spring for the following year, right?
Yes. So then why would we be?
So,
Why don't we do?
We fill them, yet when we approve the teacher's 3-year contract, it's inclusive of stipended positions and dollar amounts. Then we fill them or we may not fill them. It's very
Okay.
possible, the confusion is, I don't know, it's very possible the confusion is Bill Foley may not have had an assistant
In the
cheerleading,
past.
assumed we didn't
Past
have the
right.
position,
right,
and then is suggesting we have it, when in fact, the
We had it
the
years
title
ago.
is listed in the
Yeah.
contract.
Got it.
Right,
He
you
wants
didn't
to
wanna
now-
post
That he
Right.
now wants to fill.
by, in
Yes.
case to make
the
that
probably,
error.
the numbers have been down low where it
Right,
probably
it's
hasn't
also
been a position.
possible,
in the
right,
past.
where we didn't need it, or
Right.
nobody put it in for it, you know, because the numbers were low. The numbers are climbing, which is good.
And there are many injuries in cheer. We want our
Yes.
students to be
To be
safe, so
safe
that's
for sure.
important.
Okay.
I'm fully aware that that was the concern.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh,
there
I'm
was
fully
safety.
aware of the safety.
I coached for years and I completely understand when
Okay.
you're the only coach and you don't
It
have an
just seemed like
assistant.
all of a sudden there was much larger numbers to
Yeah.
the squad, and he contacted me this afternoon.
Okay.
I don't think we're opposed to the position.
No,
Yeah.
okay,
No, I
fine.
appreciate that, thank
I
you.
don't
Coming
know.
full circle and everything. is-
Yeah.
So now what do we do?
So, we have a motion and a second, so we go to a vote on it.
We vote
If you
down.
vote yes to create it, it's already created, so you're not doing anything. If you vote no,
It's again not doing it.
it's not
Right,
doing
right,
anything.
right.
So, roll call vote, and vote however you want. I mean,
Oh,
it's-
who goes first?
Justin.
Yes.
Just to avoid confusion, in a year from now, when we're looking at these, if you
Oh,
want the
the
position,
minutes.
maybe you vote in the affirmative? Just saying,
Okay.
yes?
Yes.
Well, I apologize for the confusion.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Lubner?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Abstain.
I knew.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
yes.
Motion carries.
Okay.
Thank you. That will go.
That's-
Guarantee it someday.
The
that will
end
go.
of Ms. Davino's section, so we're gonna go to Mr. Kepnes. Go
Oh,
ahead.
you know what?
What?
Before Mr. Kepnes, I know Chuck, did you
Yes, I
give this
did.
to everyone?
We have a white
Sorry.
paper for you from the administration at the high school. There has been discussions amongst all of us about the students after school on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday at the high school, now that we don't have the 3:30 buses. So the question is, what will happen with our students who will then be staying till 5:30? This is a proposal as a white paper. It is not a resolution yet. It's for your information of what the high school administration, and they have authored this paper, of what they recommend, and that is to create a student center in the lower library in which there are people monitoring the students and working with the students after school from 2:15 to 5:15 on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. The cost of the monitoring for the 3 seasons, back to that again, would be about $9,000. But of course, the savings will be from the $70,000 or so that we were paying for the 3:30 buses. So this is their proposal, to create an area where the students can work and do their homework and also do other things So I wanted to put this forward. It's not a resolution, it's a white paper so that you know where the resolution is coming from in August.
I just have a question. Are the clubs still gonna be, offered just Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, or are they gonna be offered 5 days a week?
I think the clubs probably will still be offered on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, unless the club advisor knows that the kids can get rides home on
Like a Monday.
Monday and
Right,
Friday.
yeah.
However, since it's all now 5:30, it might change the whole dynamic of clubs.
That's what I'm.
It
trying to
could
think.
be that, Monday, I doubt, because there's traditionally teacher meetings Monday after school.
Right.
So there would be that hour without any,
And the other question I had too in here says, at this time, the only supervised area students have access to is the upper library, which is currently only open till 3:30 on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So what did the kids do on Wednesdays if they had clubs?
I think they went to the cafeteria.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, they went to the
Yeah,
cafeteria.
but again, he's talking about supervised versus unsupervised.
Okay.
That's the difference.
Supervised because Mr. Den is in the library after school a couple days
So
a
then
week.
would all the kids be required to then not go to the cafeteria, not wander the hall? If you're out of your club,
They would be in the student
you
center
have to
area.
go to the student center.
Yes,
And then,
and
part
they're,
of- oh,
I'm
I'm
sorry.
sorry, I was
Nope.
just gonna say, part of that, there are two reasons. I mean, look, the preemptive piece is that it's really important that we know where our high school students
Yes.
are, right? So that's important. So I commend them for kind of forward thinking in that regard. It also speaks to the student life piece that we're really looking at kind of as a district, and that we've kind of talked about in our goals a little bit, that, you know, and I commend the administration at the high school, but
Absolutely.
if they do have a safe place, you know, if a student is gonna stay after school and get some extra help, but then there's not a bus until 5:30 and they don't, you know, we'd rather have them have somewhere to go, that's supervised and structured, and has some, elements of student life there for them, as opposed to wandering the halls or being in unsupervised locations. So, it would be a good practice if we would consider this, option for our kids.
Yeah, they have authored this vision and engendered the idea that during the day, the student center, because some of the CST offices are near there and guidance, that there would be a duty period where people would come out and work with the students as well during the day. So they're sort of envisioning a vibrant student center that would be part of the daily routine, maybe at lunch periods, right? As well as after school. So that's their vision. And I'd like to support it if we can.
would there be like planned activities, or is it just gonna be,
They're
you know,
talking
do
about,
what you
believe it or
want?
not, they're talking about old school things. And at first, some people may chuckle, but the truth of the matter is that there's a big gaming movement going on.
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody's heard about 20-somethings are sort of turning off their home computers and going out to cafes and playing old games
Monopoly
like
and-
Monopoly and
yeah.
Parcheesi and things. I know it sounds a little
No,
bit.
I saw
No,
it
it's
in
not.
I
It's
saw
good.
some of
That's
our high
great.
school
It's
students there
really
bringing
part
their
of
kids
the
in.
culture,
Yeah.
so it's sort of becoming hip to do old school games. So they're talking about that, they're talking about ping pong, believe it or not.
So maybe like a ping
Um,
pong competition one day.
That's
Or
having a
some
ping
kind
pong
of
table, they're
goal.
looking for donations. I mean, we have to
Some type
approve
of
this,
organized
but
activity.
the
And I
idea
don't
simply
know
is.
that it would be forced, but it would be an option,
Well,
right?
yeah, well-
So the organized activity, but, you know, look, for kids that wanna sit in a comfy chair and study and have a snack, you know, we want
Yeah,
them to have
of
a
course.
safe, comfortable place to do that too, supervised and structured, you know?
I think though if you don't have something organized, the kids might feel funny
Right,
starting
picking up the
something.
game,
But
yeah.
if you say, hey, you know, 4 o'clock, let's do a ping pong competition
Mm-hmm.
against Mr. or Mrs. So-and-so, whoever's the stipend in position, then you kind of get the ball rolling and that ping pong table just doesn't sit there. It
And
will
if-
get used.
And if Aaron Kitus wanders in and starts
Oh,
playing
gosh.
chess, there'll be a lineup.
That's right,
He's a
Yeah.
national chess player and everybody wants to beat him.
but nobody can,
Well,
nobody can.
So there's gonna be a recommendation for that for August for the stipend and
Yes,
positions?
for the August, for 9th.
Is there gonna be a recommendation to create the positions, or is it gonna be a recommendation to create and approve people for the position?
I would assume that we would make a recommendation to create the positions and then.
And then post.
Then post, and then we can fill them at the end of August because it wouldn't start till
All right, so
September.
we have to do this at the next meeting to create?
Yes,
Okay.
but also, we would like to sort of approve the idea of the student center at the next meeting too.
Well, because we're gonna have to solicit some support from the community in
Mhm.
regards to, that
Donations.
environment, right, whether it's ping pong tables, and perhaps there are people that are moving, that are
Oh,
that are
There's, I can get a
downsizing.
ton of ping pong tables.
And they all look
pool
brand new
tables.
'cause no one
They all
used
look
them.
great 'cause
Yep,
nobody
uh-huh.
uses them.
Right, so if anybody's interested in donating to the student center,
And a couple of hot tubs
it
if
would
they
be
want
lovely.
to.
No, no.
That's not
No
the student
library.
life we're talking about.
I want to assure the
Maybe that's-
community
yes.
there is nothing about that
There's
in
nothing
this,
about that on
in the
here.
white
No,
paper.
there's not say that there. Mrs. Mitchell.
Okay, sorry.
Is that it on that?
Yes.
Steve?
At the beginning, you'll see for your information, facility use, as well as on the addendum is some facility use. We're setting ourselves up, many of the programs are requesting into the fall, so that's why you'll see so many. Field trips are listed for your information.
I did have a question.
And then on page 14 at the top, you'll see your enrollment report is listed. Closing out. Sorry?
How come we didn't get a personnel report, even though it's summertime? We still normally get a personnel report. Can you forward that to us?
I thought we did.
It won't, well,
I
I
don't know.
can, I don't have, we're gonna have to discuss aid positions.
Well, that's fine, but I mean, at least we kind of know where we're at, numbers for teachers,
Okay.
number for staff, so
Okay.
on and so forth. I understand the whole AIDS thing. You know, the AIDS could be 0 for right now until
Okay.
we determine where they're at, but we kind of discussed that back in June, so that way we can kind of keep a little bit of a fluid motion on where we're at.
Okay. And letter E, your goal-setting process in your packets.
Okay.
So Steve, I forwarded you a attachment from just now, or prior to the meeting, I forwarded you an attachment from Mark where he compiled input from all of the board members filling out attachment E.
We updated.
So can we project that for this conversation?
If I have it, sure.
So we can have a more informed conversation.
Yes.
Steve, can you put that on the,
Yeah, we're gonna put it up there. Oh, I thought you were talking to that. Steve.
I meant
Just move to
Steve.
the side, right?
I'll get the links.
Can we turn off the air conditioning, because I can't take it anymore? Yeah.
I'm just
I think
paper.
there's an adjuster for temperature on those things.
There
Oh,
is,
there should
there's
be
a remote.
clicker.
I'll turn it off.
Or just put it on 72 or not 52.
I think we should put it on OFF.
Yeah, all right.
I'll second that.
Yeah.
You want me to let the public know the context? Yeah. Okay. So, just so that the public is aware, and just to bring everybody up to speed, Mark has been really facilitating a great process since our last meeting of goal setting for the district goals for the coming school year, which will eventually lead into the CSA goals and the board goals, which we'll set subsequent to this. Board members provided input to Mark on 3 draft district goals and on the major activities that we'll be using over the next year to evaluate those goals and our progress on them. Mark put together a final or a semi-final version of what he sent to the board members, and we provided him feedback on. So that is this here.
Ready?
Yeah, go to the next slide.
So, you want to speak to this, Brian?
Well, just this slide is, on June 27th, we created the vision statement, and then tonight we're going to go over district goals. Back on the 27th, we kind of gave a brainstorming session on district goals, and Mark actually did quite a bit of that work beforehand and presented to all the board members, and we had input then as well. He kind of refined it a little bit after June 27th and sent us an email a couple weeks ago. Asked us to give him some input on the work that he compiled, and I think he said he heard back from every board member, I believe he said. So that brings us to the 25th, which is today, that we're gonna go over district goals, and then that's gonna lead to board goals, after that. So, this should have all the updated information from the board members on here that's not in our package that was given. So, you wanna go to the next one?
Yep.
District goals should directly support the achievement of our vision, which we worked on the vision statement last month. District goals will guide our major activities, inform both board and CSA goals, and prioritize our agendas going forward. Our goals will be supported by major activities that are specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound, which are SMART goals. Significant progress on our highest priorities is better than incremental to little progress on too many priorities. That's why we went down from 3. In the past, we've had 7 or 8 goals, and we figured let's concentrate on our 3 main concerns and move from there. This is the vision statement that we approved earlier in the meeting. I won't read it again since it was read earlier in the meeting, but we probably spent a half hour forming that up. Next one. So this is the getting into the crux of the goals. So goal number 1, foster a safe and inclusive learning environment supported at every level from classroom to community where every student can be at their authentic best. The major activities were safety, climate, community, and communication. That's in the left-hand column. And then indicators of success, which is all things that the board members kind of forwarded to Mark. Timing issues, and also the owner of each of those. So let's go with the indicators of success. Anybody want to discuss anything in there? I might as well, I guess I'll read them. Safety. Number 1, effective installation of pilot water treatment system at RH and LH, which Mr. Kepnes is going to discuss a little later on as well. Water stations installed and operating every school. We were informed that that's already done, so that's checked. Continued water testing 2 times per year throughout the district. That's ongoing. State mandates us only to do it once every 5 years. We are doing it 2 times a year. Climate. Anybody have anything they want to add to safety or change anything with safety? Look good to everybody? Okay. We'll go to number 2, climate. Formation of a climate committees at each school composed of students, teachers, and staff. That's going to be formed in the month of September.
Most of those committees have already been formed from last year, and we hold over. The October date that we put in there is to make sure that the first meeting was held in September.
Okay. 2, climate committees identify no less than 3 opportunities to improve and enhance their respective schools' work climate. Number 3, progress is tracked via 2 climate surveys per school, benchmark and pulse surveys. So we've done a few climate surveys in the past, district-wide, but these are going to be really kind of building specific, correct? Okay. And then you have the corresponding dates to that. The benchmark survey will be done sometime in October and November, and the pulse survey February 2020. I think those dates might be a little close to have any type of effect. I think maybe that pulse survey should be out like in April or May.
Agreed.
I mean, don't you think? Anybody?
I didn't put that date in. I don't know where that date came from.
Does anybody have any problems with changing the pulse survey?
Yeah, make it
We'll
April.
put it later.
All right, let's put it for April. How's that? All right, you got that, Jen? I don't know if you can change it on there or not.
Probably not in this format.
No,
while
so
we're watching
we'll just take notes and we'll forward them
Yes,
to
exactly.
Mark.
No problem.
3, community. LEAD program launched at the 5th grade level. We had LEAD in here back in April-ish or so. And they did a presentation to the police department to be determined on that date. Number 2, HIP training for all administration. I know Ms. Davino is already working on that. Date of September 30th, so that's already in progress. 3, inform parents about conflict resolution process procedures. I think we've all know that the HIB law has a lot of procedures that have to be followed. I think sometimes there's an education that has to be done for all parties involved in HIB. So That's gonna be
We're
September,
gonna roll some
October.
of that out at back to school nights, Brad.
Okay.
Just as a process and protocol from the administration, back to school nights are the times when we have the most audience, right? Parents come to back to school nights in all of our schools, they're pretty well attended, so that'll be a good opportunity. I think that's where the September, October came from, so that they really understand how we wanna move forward with that.
Okay. Should we do something beyond back to school nights?
I think, you know what, I think with a lot of these things that, you know, it says involve and inform parents about conflict resolution process procedures. It is ongoing, but I think at the beginning of the year is a real opportunity to have those conversations with families. And then, you know, different committees and different initiatives happen throughout the year. For example, the LEAD program, even though it's launched in 5th grade, there are a couple of different opportunities, right, for that to happen. Even though the training for the administration happens in August, we're gonna have another training probably in January, and that's not reflected up there, but it would be important for the administrators to have ongoing articulation about how do we look mid-year, you know, what's happening when we look at our investigations. I mean, all the research shows us that these are things that are not one-shot deals, right? So, my recommendation is as we go through these things, that we also, that, you know, look at the end of the year, a lot of these things are, look at it, says CSA, right? So a lot of these things fall under me. It's my job to report out on these things to you, as well as at the end of the year when we're talking about what my goals look like. I would be responsible for adding some of the other items on there that we have accomplished, extending out beyond these particular indicators.
Okay. Number 4, continued anti-bullying committee to support inclusive behaviors and address ad hoc issues. Something that.
So we're working on that. We meet once a month. And I also just want to note that, yes, we are the anti-bullying committee. However, we are doing a student life piece as well.
Yes.
So it's actually a twofold committee. So I just don't want anybody to think that, you know, every single month that we meet, it's just going to be only about bullying. It's going to be about student life as well. So
You want to add student life into number 4?
I really do, because we're speaking about empowering our students and more of a student-centric type of feel to the schools, and that's what we're working on as well as anti-bullying. So and that's once a month. So
I think that's probably what he was referring to when, where it says ad hoc issues, right? Because the major activity talks about, you know, the implementation and the student life initiative.
yeah,
So I think
because I want to
that's-
roll out a character U idea that I have. We're going to be working on that, on different facets of students' character, and then there'll be an incentive program. We're gonna start working on that. So we're doing a lot with that. It's just not anti-bullying. Just
The other piece, I guess, around this goal is really everything kind of dovetails for me into social emotional learning, which I've talked about, you know, quite openly with the board and with community members and parents. In fact, I've mentioned to some of you on Wednesday, I was at NJPSA, and the 3 goals for that organization for this year are social emotional learning, formative and summative assessment, and teacher leadership. So when you look at SEL at the state level, it's actually the single most requested need in school districts across the state. So you would see from me, and it doesn't necessarily have to go on this, but when you see the superintendent goals, you would likely see SEL activities and initiatives that support the district goals. I just wanted the board to understand how some of that supports the initiatives at the district level. So again, it doesn't necessarily have to be in here, but you'll see it in mine. Oh, is it on the next
district goal
one?
number 2, we're going to talk
Yeah.
about SEL.
Yeah.
Right, I just,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, did I
Yeah.
miss it?
No,
On the next-
Oh, the next
Next
one,
goal,
oh, I'm
yeah.
sorry.
well,
That's
we're
already
still on number 4. I just want to say that we're meeting on August 7th.
Okay.
So if there's parents out there that want to come and participate, we're meeting on August 7th.
Number 5, host parent workshops. Kind of what I mentioned before, designed to assist families' efforts in supporting their students' learning and involvement. And that's going to happen 4 times per year. Anybody have anything else they want to add to community? Okay, we'll go to communication. Number 1, continued weekly podcasts and virtual backpack to support parent-family awareness. I think our gentleman who spoke in the public, just got exposed to our podcast, and I think that's a great community outreach that Chuck had started probably, what, 2 years ago now, Chuck? What are you on, episode 533 now?
Season 12.
You can stream us.
But I think, you know, the podcasts are awesome way to reach out, and the views are considerable on them. So so that's weekly and ongoing. 2, increase attendance at district functions. 3, proactively utilize social media to involve the broader community in a productive manner. Live stream attendance, hits on social media, etc.
And that fills us in, you know, on times on what's hitting and what doesn't,
Yeah.
so
he
you know,
watches
Karen
it,
and I
yeah.
talk about this all the time, like, what's the most productive way to get something out? And so, you know, whether it's superintendent spotlight or other ideas, said,
Well, I don't think it's the same for everybody, and I think
No,
that's
I know
why,
it's not.
and I think that's why the podcast work for some people, digital backpack for others.
Yep.
Our live streaming, you know, we talk many times that, you know, we have, I don't know, 20 people or something watching our live stream, but then come Monday morning, you know, there's 150 views, so.
because someone called someone else and said, did you see the meeting, and check out, you know, minute 9
Yeah.
where Brad's talking about something, you know, that type of thing.
Number 4, marketing open house program to have more public awareness of district success and plans to move forward.
Yeah.
Something Kelly's working on.
Yes, there's a lot of times where a family is considering moving into the area, and they would love to have the opportunity to walk through the schools and have somebody come and explain to them what's going on in our schools and just get a feel for it. I think that's really important. So, I mean, I'm willing to do it on a weekend
Yes.
time point, you know,
I'm in.
yeah, so that we can, you know, and I thought that we could all take turns and do that. I think it would be, I think it would be a great opportunity. And then also sometimes people are working, you know, we have a little bit
Yeah.
of a bedroom community here. So I think that on the weekends, if we hold that, they can hear about what's going on in our schools.
And we have the packets ready, Kel, so, you
Yeah.
know, it depends
So I'm
on
really excited
what
about doing
school,
that.
then, you know, if they're talking about the middle school, then we gear the packet towards the middle school and
Right.
high school.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
a really great piece.
So I'm really excited about
The-
getting that going. We'll start.
The one change I would make on that is
Yeah.
I would add BOE to an owner on that, since we do have the
No,
community
I
outreach.
think, well, that's what I was
Yeah,
planning. Yeah.
But we're not listed as an owner there.
Oh.
And I think the
Oh,
BOE
okay.
should be listed as an owner.
No,
there.
that was my plan. I was not going to have Karen do any more than what she's
Yeah.
doing now.
Yeah, when-
Karen's up there a lot. That's my job.
Now, I want to say this to Karen and everybody else, when I gave Mark my ideas, I put our individual names down.
I did too, so I
Yeah,
don't know.
So maybe he's just trying to abbreviate just to keep it simplified.
Okay.
Right, I
And he's thinking that the CSA, and that includes Steve and I, or
Delegates.
whatever. But I did
Yeah.
put names down of different people. I gave
Yeah.
you a couple of jobs, Kelly, so.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, because I think,
I
well, I
like
think that
jobs.
everything, you know, from the board has to flow to the CSA.
Right, right.
And
Yeah,
from there,
that's
the
fine.
chain of command is that it gets
Okay,
delegated.
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Like I said, I
Okay.
didn't realize what he was saying.
I mean, the good thing, right, is that we're recognizing the strengths of our board members, which is tremendous, and understanding the collaborative piece of what the district goals look like, right? I mean, as a district, you are representatives of our community because you've been elected to be here. You know, obviously, you know, Steve, Chuck, and I, the folks who work here, you know, it's our job. But I think it's a great collaborative piece moving forward, and I think there's a lot of great stuff up there. It's really good.
Now, there's nothing in resources needed. Do we need to add anything there? Do you?
I think Mark's thought on that, actually I can find his note, was that might be like ongoing.
Okay.
You know, as
Okay.
Like on one of them, Justin, I put printing costs or
Sure.
something like that. On another one, but again, it might have been too general for Mark. You know, maybe he was saying, you know, like, you're not putting down what that would cost, so therefore you really can't put that in.
This, and this template, I'm not sure what, you know, Mark envisions, but, you know, by the end of the year, if we use this template and start to, there may be other things that we end up doing, as kind of offshoots of some of these activities, and it might be beneficial for us to track those, and then at the end of
Well,
the year or periodically,
yeah.
right, we would take a look.
I mean, I think what we should do is add another column to it, and for instance, say lead program, right? We should put down things that were accomplished in the lead program. You know, as far as communication, we should put down how many podcasts we did, How many messages were sent out virtual backpack? You know, just do something over there.
Like another column.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
that kind of almost goes to the measurable part of it, right?
Sure. Mhm.
You know, if there are things that Karen and Chuck come up with that are not an indicator of success, but they do it and is
Absolutely.
successful in advocating communication, then they should include that.
Right,
Sure.
right.
Yeah, or if it supports the district goal in any way, right? I mean, even, you know, we're talking about, you know, and I won't belabor the point, we're talking about the podcasts, and I will tell you, I was at Glen Meadow today because Mrs. Gephardt and Dr. Kosak are having weekly open houses and kind of self-guided tours for students, and I met a student today who knew me because I played in the concert at Lounsbury last year, but knew Dr. McKay from the podcast. And then, you know, we actually, there were actually other people, it speaks to the marketing open house program because the parents that were there because they want to know more about the schools. So, you know, we're starting the school year strong, so I think these things, I agree with all the comments around the table that if we can track some of that progress, that would probably be beneficial at the end of the year to take a
So-
look back on.
So,
Did we do number 4 yet or no?
Yeah.
Okay, so as we, you know, as we go through the school year, you know, things like the indicators of success, the timing, the resources, and the tracking of the goals are gonna change and fluctuate. But we, you know,
True.
in terms of the major activities for the goal, you know, is everybody comfortable with where we're at
Yeah.
now?
Yep.
Focus on
Nobody
it.
wants to add or change or revise?
No, that's a lot of,
On
that's
the
a lot of
owner,
work.
for the lead program, I put Chief Young as well. I just wanted to give him credit. I'm not saying that we have to, but he really is
Yeah.
directing us on that program. And it was
That's great.
his initiative that he brought to Karen.
All right, let's go to district goal number 2. Number 2, drive student achievement and academic success across a wide range of needs within our student population to ensure the growth and development of the whole child. That's something that we spent a lot of time on last month, is discussing the whole child. So we'll go major activities. Number 1, curriculum. Examine courses, electives in district, looking at emerging trends, budget, enrollment, staffing, curriculum, needs, state, federal requirements to determine possible changes to offering. Number 1, indicators of success. Number 1, examine attendance patterns in courses, electives, as well as soliciting current student and parent input to determine areas of need, focus, interest to optimize course offered within the budget constraints. Something that we kind of touched upon a little bit earlier during the public comment session, how we are going to be spending a little bit more time on the classes that are being underutilized and seeing what we can do with them. Excuse me. Number 2, adjust, add, delete course offerings accordingly. Owner of that is BOE Curriculum Committee and the CSA. Anybody want to add anything to that? Number 2, extracurricular. Again, this is discussing the whole child, which extracurricular is a huge part of it. Examine current offerings of sports, clubs, activities in district to ensure whole child development opportunities are available across a wide area of interests. Number 1, examining attendance patterns and trends in extracurricular activities, as well as soliciting current student parent input to determine areas of interest to optimize extracurricular offerings within current budget constraints. Very similar to number 1. Number 2, who's calling here at 9:30 at night?
Must be a wrong
Pizza
number.
delivery.
Number 2, adjust, add, delete extracurricular offerings accordingly, resulting in higher percentage of student involvement in extracurricular activities. So really evaluating where we're at with our numbers in all of our extracurricular activities and make changes and adjustments accordingly. BOE and CSA owners of that. Anybody had anything they want to add to that? Number 3, prioritize and implement social emotional learning across the district with a focus on mindfulness and the mental health of our students as a means of improving student wellness and supporting academic achievement. Number 1, social emotional learning curriculum is developed based on agreed upon learning objectives. Number 2, an implementation plan for social emotional learning across the district is created, including all materials, supplies, instructional needs, and associated costs. CSA's owner. Anybody have anything they want to add? I mean, as far as the mental health and of our children. I think that's something that we put a focus on a couple years ago, and we want to, still kind of keep our foot on the pedal with that one.
Yeah, I think that this year, Karen has now been with the district for a full school year, right?
Almost
A full
September,
school year.
coming up. Yeah.
So, and I know that this has been a priority of yours
Yeah.
since your interview process with the board.
Yeah.
So I think that we really have the opportunity now to dive,
Yeah.
full speed ahead into implementing this into the district.
Yeah, look, I'm pleased to see it there. In fact, in June, we had a voluntary workshop for social emotional learning, where it was voluntary for teachers to attend in June, not during the school year, and we had a cap it at 50 participants, and we had a full house of 50 teachers who came and spent a full day with somebody to talk about SEL, learning and what it looks like in the curriculum. It was really well attended, and it was a very, very well received topic for many of our teachers, so I'm excited.
I mean, I'll say just that during partnership meetings that we've had in the most recent years, the emotional needs of our students have been at the forefront of our teachers. So
Absolutely.
it doesn't surprise me that it was capped at 50.
Yeah, I think that the interest is there, the need is there, and
Yeah,
there's a lot of potential for good work.
yeah, I agree.
Number 4, provide appropriate and cost-effective professional development for teachers, administrative, and staff. Number 1, differentiated development opportunities and programs with input from teachers, administrators, and staff are identified and implemented in a cost-effective manner. CSA, I would put BOE on that one as well also. I think that falls underneath us during budget time to make sure we have ample funds for professional development for our teachers, and it's something that for all the time I've been on the board, we've always stressed, professional development for our staff, so.
And I just want to point out, for anyone who's listening who may not see it or realize it, where it says differentiated development opportunities, my vision for that was that we're giving, to be cost effective, we're giving our teachers and our administrators and our staff PD that they really need. In some of those areas that they may feel they need a little more or a little improvement, so it's very targeted. Instead of having, for example, all 4th grade teachers have to go to this
Right.
PD, I think that we can actually save money by kind of honing into the skills that teachers need a little strengthening in.
Great point.
Anybody want to add anything to district goal number 2? All right, go to number 3. Exercise fiscal responsibility in order to optimize the district's limited resources towards safety and student achievement while continuing to pursue additional sources of revenue to fund what's possible. Major activities. Number 1, healthcare insurance. Evaluate and recommend alternative options that provide quality healthcare while providing cost savings to the district. Number 1, communicate a financial analysis to all viable healthcare insurance alternatives to the district and community in transparent, understandable terms. Number 2, implement a quality healthcare insurance option that delivers significant cost savings to the district. Timing of that is October, and the BOE is owner of that, which is, Justin has chaired the healthcare ad hoc committee, so he's been working pretty diligently on that since January, I'd say.
Yeah, since the beginning of this year, and we're continuing to work on that, and we'll hopefully have updates in the near future, but there's more work to be done.
And also another big component of that is negotiations.
Absolutely.
So that's, but again, that's confidential as we go through.
Mm-hmm.
So,
But that plays a huge part in that, there's no doubt.
Right.
Number 2, optimize right size the district footprint and personnel based on current and anticipated future student population. Number 1, communicate a comprehensive financial analysis of district footprint options and based on current and anticipated student population data for the June 2019 demographic study update. Number 2, evaluate and recommend right size personnel structure based on desired and compliant teacher/aide to student ratios, utilizing current and anticipated student population data per the June 2019 demographic study update. Number 3, implement and any assets and personnel changes necessary to recognize the optimal footprint personal structures as noted above. Number 4, reduce operating expenses by 3% year over year. That's obviously going to kind of follow our budget cycle, which is July 1st to June 30th, but we start working on the budget. Well, Steve's already working on
Next year we're working on it.
2021, is already starting to work on that, so. Owners of that are BOE, Business Administrator, and CSA. Anybody want to add anything to that?
I just have a question on the number 2. I mean, I see there it says in parentheses, compliant teacher aide student ratios. I'd just like to clarify, that's not special education because that's IEP driven, correct? Okay.
I think number 4, that 3% figure is probably something that we're gonna have to delve into a little bit, and discuss as we go. What are we defining as our operating expenses?
Right, I think it's at 17%, right? That's outside of the,
Contract.
Is it?
I mean, I don't know.
Benefits.
That's how I read it.
Yeah.
But I don't know if that's how it was,
Right, I think that,
whoever put that up, if that's what they were thinking.
yeah, I think that needs to be dived into
That
further.
3% might be very aggressive.
Well, I figure 3% on a $66 million budget is
But that's
almost
not all operating expenses.
That's my point.
It's not.
That's my point. That's $2 million, but if you go on the 17%, that's the, I call it the variable part, that's non-contractual, right?
So that would be like non-contractual expenses, but you could argue that operating
I agree.
expenses include salaries.
I
and
agree.
contractual, right?
Absolutely.
But
It may be arbitrary, but it's a goal, it's a target, and if we find that we can do a whole lot better, great, and if we feel it's unreasonable, like you said, these are gonna be adjusted as we go.
Well, we should define that right now for the goal. What's considered operating expenses? Is it the overall budget, or is it just the 17% that's non-contractual of healthcare and
You
salaries?
can't do the overall budget.
You can't, we
Because you
reduce it.
can't change teachers' salaries.
So
I think that the argument would be, if you were advocating for reducing the overall budget by 3%, is that there would be a decrease in the headcount, which we know that there will be
Oh,
a
okay.
natural decrease in the headcount, but to achieve 3% would be a drastic cut
Mhm.
in personnel in 1 year.
I'm sorry, and this is, I know this is not the way you wanna look at it, you wanna look at true expenses and what can be taken out of the mix. But bear with me for a sec. If you apply a 2% to your tax levy, and if you apply the balance of your banked cap as an increase, but then you subtract the state aid we're gonna lose to the tune of 2 million, you can almost back into what that percent will have to be as in terms of what's the maximum
Yeah.
you could spend anyway.
Mhm. That's true.
I mean, the question is, what's gonna go in that scenario, because we
'Cause
have to
you're-
reduce.
Well, you're looking
for
at,
next year.
in a couple of years, your 2% of tax levy increase is about $850,000, right? And then, but we're gonna be losing $2.9 million.
Right.
So right there is 2.1, which is about 3%
Right.
of the overall budget. And then you got increases on healthcare benefits, all that stuff on
Something's
top.
gotta give to get
So-
down, we have to, we'll have no choice but to decrease that budget anyway.
I mean, we want to have it something that's measurable, but
Yes.
it's so nebulous. The way it's written right there.
Well, we can change that very easily by saying reduced overall budget by X% year over year. That's a way to accomplish it. Or we could say reduce non-salary and health benefits expenses by X% year over year. So, I mean, if it's gonna be a district goal, we should define it out how we want it as a board. It shouldn't be just left in limbo for interpretation.
But we don't have to, I don't think we have to decide that tonight, right? We're not approving the district goals.
No, there's not a recommendation to approve them tonight on the agenda, right?
Correct. And,
So-
there's nothing obligating you to approve these today,
No.
August, I mean, we're working through them.
So that's something
Once the
that
board's comfortable,
we need to
you approve
discuss
your goals.
in the future then.
Yeah, and I think, when we approve them, right, we would be looking at approving the goals and perhaps the major activities. I don't know that we were approving every item, or is that the vision, right, to approve indicators
I-
of success, the whole document?
I mean, I think you approve the entire document.
Okay.
Personally,
Well, we have to
I
have
would
a
think
number
that
there
was
to
no,
make it
yeah.
measurable, and that's
If
a
you
SMART
want,
goal.
we could change, tentatively just say, really to balance the budget with reduced state aid, because that statement, to balance the budget with reduced state aid, requires you to reduce your budget. If you want, I could do a maximum of what what your budget could be and see what that reduction turns into, and give you that percentage. I don't have it right in front of me.
Well,
Yes,
what,
my hesitation is the 3%.
I
mean,
I
just don't-
understand.
I know it has to be measurable, but
Right.
it's kind of,
Yeah, what does that mean? What is?
yeah.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's,
Well, this is gonna be discussed again August, what is it, 5th? Is the next time we, no?
No.
8th. Okay, so maybe at the August 8th meeting then, maybe what you can provide us, Steve, is what our state aid loss is, to remind us again, what our state aid loss is projected to be over the next 5 or 6 years. And then that way we can develop beyond that.
We'll back into that percent in terms of, a relatively simple way of doing it. The good question will be, what items have to come out to balance to that? And I think that's really what that's asking for. What, we're reducing, what are we reducing? And I can give you a percentage, but I couldn't tell you
Right.
what areas get reduced. I mean, salaries, benefits will get reduced, because we'll have fewer folks.
Number 3, fixed expenses. Explore alternative options to provide cost savings to the district related to fixed expenses. This kind of like almost defines number 2 then. Number 1, evaluate energy consumption, especially of VTHS, utilities, and transportation costs across the district to explore cost-effective alternatives. Number 2, meet with township officials through the liaison committee to determine if there are any services we could bid together to obtain more competitive pricing.
we spoke to that last night, because eventually we're going to have to concern ourselves with the field.
Right.
So we discussed last night that possibly we would speak with whoever's doing Maple Grange. Maybe we could get a discount if we do it at the same time as they do. We're not sure, so Steve was gonna look into that.
Yeah, I think the thing, I mean, I don't think we could do anything with when the 2 fields are getting done now, but I think when the football field gets done down there,
Right.
then I think if we can somehow,
Well, why not though?
because we it's not in our budget for this coming year.
The 2 bondings that they approved?
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Because that's gonna take a long time for them.
They're not gonna be able to do it this fall.
And have we even evaluated yet whether we're ready or in need of
We're
doing
we're
We're
really
2
close
years
to
out.
Well,
it.
Yeah.
it's still safe,
Yeah.
but.
Our field's
Was it
degrading.
you who said, we don't wanna wait till suddenly we have to shut it down because it's not
No,
safe.
but think about it, I mean, we might get a significant savings if
Oh,
we do it
absolutely.
at the same
But
time that they do.
Now's the time, and Bill and Foley and I have discussed this, but now's the time to start thinking of making that decision, to build it into next year's budget, probably with your capital reserve, and get it done, yes,
Because that's something that has to be, it has to be planned
yes,
in between the seasons to get done, so.
Right.
right.
We cannot wait for our field to become unsafe in order to do it,
Exactly.
because then it's gonna be a real hindrance to either the fall or spring sports season,
But there-
so.
I think there has to be a conversation about whether we want to use capital reserve.
no
or
doubt.
Whether we want to look at our other debt that's expiring.
Right.
And if we want to issue to finance the fields, because that would be a severe depletion to our capital.
Steve's
reserve.
already,
Yes.
looking into it with
Yeah.
Pinella, or,
It's actually not, he
the,
doesn't get back to me easily, his counterpart of his
Yeah.
has her thumb on the pulse with,
Mhm.
issuing
I would just
debt.
have concerns with depleting our capital reserve to that
I
extent.
agree, yes.
it also depends too, if, what type of savings that we can.
Of course.
assu-
I mean,
assu-
that's
assume
what we were
also.
talking
Yeah.
about, I mean,
So,
you don't know, I mean,
Right.
maybe it could be significant.
Of course.
It's gonna be in the $400,000 range. I think their
Right.
estimates were just under, were 375. We were verbally told 4 and some change, so it's about a $400,000 project.
So, I just wanna look into
Yeah,
it,
of course.
Yes.
As far as the energy consumption at the high school, for those of you who haven't been on the board, back about a decade ago, we were spending $1.3 million in electricity up at the high school. That's a 100% electric high school. Everything in it runs off electric. There's no gas, there's no oil, there's no nothing up there.
Well, Brett, we have to get new windows in there.
No, I'm not saying it.
We're-
I want the public to realize that we were at 1.3 million at one point in time, and we're down to 600,000 through the Noresco project that we
But I
did.
mean, if we get those windows in there, we'll be even better. Because
I'm
it
not,
just-
I'm not saying we're not.
Yeah.
I'm not saying we're not, but I want to stress to the public that there's already been a significant
Yes.
amount of work done
We're
up there.
halfway there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for that, by the way, yes.
Okay, and,
Second page to this.
huh?
I think there's a second.
Oh, is there?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry.
So,
You want to flip another?
yes.
3, continue. You're right. 4, revenue. Proactively pursue all prudent alternative sources of revenue. For example, grants, alumni, and community contributions. 1, proactively and regularly evaluate available grants and present viable opportunities, including requirements to the board for approval to pursue. Number 2, establish VTSD alumni and business community networks as a platform for pride, support, financial and non-financial, and ongoing direct involvement in developing our students towards future contributing members of the Vernon community. Anybody have anything they want to add to that? We have some pretty influential alumni that have graduated from Vernon who have done very well for themselves. I don't know if they'd ever pony up some money for us, but unless we have a platform to do it, it's not going to happen. So, yeah. Number 5, develop a robust, growing exchange program that offers educational opportunities to our student and promote a diverse and inclusive environment while providing financial benefits to the district. 1, establish sister school agreements and begin communications between the students from both schools. 2, implement formal 2-week visit by foreign students to VTSD. And 3, full year tuition paying exchange students join the VTSD community. One change I would take out the exchange part.
Exactly.
Foreign student program.
Yep.
Should we just change the verbiage?
Yeah, just make it foreign student program, like, yeah.
Yeah.
Anybody have anything else they want to add to that?
At one time, we had a stipended position as alumni coordinator. I don't know what the
Yeah,
position.
we did, that's
I
right.
don't know what the position entailed, but the high school I went to has an aggressive alumni program.
Do you donate?
It's none of your concern.
Just thinking as
See if
far
it
as
works.
if it works. Yeah.
It does work.
Okay.
It does work very well.
Oh, you went to Pope John though, right?
We're
It's none of your
live here.
concern.
We're live
Wait,
here.
that's public knowledge.
There was no Vernon High School, okay?
I went to the pool.
So for number, for
For
number 5, I think
I
this
know.
is another one that can lead right into the CSA goals as we develop those in
Yes.
the next month.
Oh, absolutely.
You know, and can help to
No.
I didn't know.
inform those.
Totally agree. Anybody have anything they want to add to the entire packet of district goals?
We sit next to each other.
All right, good. Thanks to Mark for kind of spearheading this, and thanks to all the board members and central office staff that reached out to him with their ideas and input as well. So I think it's off to a really, really good start.
Okay, so I think from here we could probably have this distributed to the full board, and then
Yeah.
if we need to make any adjustments before the August 8th meeting, we can do that.
We had it already? It has
No,
been
we
distributed.
No, these.
Not the
Well,
updated one.
and we made a couple of changes tonight.
Yeah, we had the old version at our receipts, the unupdated one.
We're gonna move on to
Obviously, I-
demographics. So, Dr. Grip finished his demographic study up and forwarded it to us last month. Actually, I think it was the night of graduation, because it was discussed a little bit before the graduation ceremony. Can this be put up on the website? for people's
Absolutely.
sake? I think that's
Yes,
number 1.
of course. I wanted the board to see it, discuss it before we did that. Yes.
So I'll open up for you guys, things to talk about. there's a lot of actually very interesting information throughout the whole thing about Vernon
History.
demographics over time.
Yeah.
And,
Aging population, et cetera.
but the meat of it, what we want to get to is about page 17. And it shows back in 2009, we had 4,267 students. And this past year, 2,982 for a loss of about 1,300 students, or about 25% if my math is correct. And then looking forward, that's 18, 19,
33.
what is it?
Projections.
Yes, what page is it?
33.
Page 33 is the projections. Well, on actually 32, he has on table 9, estimated number of eligible preschool students. He has starting the DFGs are no longer correct.
Right.
Act of 2008. That's not a projection. That's what we actually had. And then table 10, Vernon Township's school district projected enrollments pre-K through 12. In 1920, it's forecasted to be 2,846. And in 23-24, which is 5 school years from now, he has it at 2,563 for a loss of about another 300 students.
So what's interesting about that table, though, is our kindergarten and first grade enrollments, as those years go on, are going to increase, but we're still going to go down in student count because we're going to lose those top-heavy
Right.
high school grades, and they're going to be replaced by the middle school where we had that big decline.
What is the enrollment projection for kindergarten right now,
For next year.
for September?
Oh, 220, I think, registered for the fall. Is
And
that
this
accurate?
shows 167.
But the only thing is, you see that SE of 111?
Mm-hmm.
Those are self-contained kids. So what he's done is he's backed out 111 self-contained
Across
kids
12 grades.
across 12 grades.
13 grades.
Right, but that self-contained number, I would tend to think, in the earlier years is higher than in the later.
So that's sprinkled across those
Right.
grades.
What
In a
are,
sense, right.
is our self-contained number planned for 1920?
For kindergarten?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
But I think the number's off. I think his kindergarten number's off. And I think it has less to do with live births than it has to do with home sales. Congratulations, Kelly. If you look back on page 30, no, wait, let me see. Yeah, page 30.
Yeah.
The difference between 2012 and 2018 with home sales, I think because that is such, there's so much disparity, I think that really will affect. He was insanely accurate the last
He
5
was.
Yes.
He was, but I just think that home sales with that kind of spike, unless I'm wrong, is affecting, it's certainly affecting.
I don't
our
want to
kindergarten.
disagree, this is what he does for a living, I don't want
Right,
to
right,
disagree.
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't
But
think we
based
should.
on my numbers of with home sales, I disagree with his findings.
But I think
I think we're gonna have a little bit of a drop, but then I think we're gonna go up much quicker and not continue to go down like
He
he's
does
saying.
have that, an indication though of a growth in population over
Yeah.
years, you know.
Yeah, our actual new enrollments are going to go up.
Right.
It's that we're just going to lose larger classes.
Because
that
we're
are
not
high school.
replacing, the thing is like kindergarten needs to replace 12th grade,
Right.
right? And it's not. So it's up maybe to 185 or 194 that one year, but if you look at what you're losing, you're never meeting that. You know, like 175 doesn't replace 242, right?
But the interesting thing
That's
is
the
that,
thing.
Natalie, if kindergarten continues to hold at 200 plus, or say it's 220, you're talking about matching the 9th grade and 10th grade numbers. we actually even out as a
Yeah,
district
this year we do.
because the loss
Right.
of students and the kindergarten students start
So-
to measure. I think we actually might start to hit that
That plateau.
in the next couple of years, which would be a really healthy
So
sign.
what's our number now?
So we'll drop but then plateau.
Mhm.
What's our number
Yeah.
now of
I think-
enrollments?
220 for
220 for
kindergarten.
kindergarten.
So the projection is already off then, right?
Right.
Because they're projecting this year 167.
But as
But
Brad
you-
said,
you still
Well,
have the-
plus
the
that
pull-out.
111
Yeah,
though,
the
how many of
pull-out,
those 111
self-contained
is
funds.
he?
Just
yeah.
say divided by 12.
Yeah,
right?
10 of them.
Yeah, it might be a little bit heavier than dividing by 12 because it might be early numbers with
Yeah.
So 20,
K
add
through
20.
4. Yeah.
So even so,
And,
he's off.
and of
by-
course, the kindergarten class this year could be a flip, but I'm just
Well-
saying, when we look at home sales and the spike that has happened
Well, and he
since
doesn't need to put that,
212.
yeah.
Also,
And you have to
too,
think
And there are
about who's
houses in
buying
my
these houses.
neighborhood that have been vacant for a few years that are no longer vacant.
Yeah.
We're
Right.
talking about
And they're
9
all-
or 10 houses.
And
Yeah.
they're all young families.
Right.
So they're either husband and wife that haven't even started yet, or very young families. So, I mean, and that's something that he can't put in this report, like he doesn't have the profile.
That's an anomaly,
Yeah,
really.
so I mean, the
Well, I
only
think it
people
has
that
taken
would,
us so long for Vernon to bounce back, that's why. Like, a
Yeah.
lot of other communities have bounced back already ahead of us. So we're just taking, I mean, if you look at that spike of the
I mean,
house
if you-
sales,
if
it's
you
taken
just
us a
look
long
at,
time. Look at how long
at
we
Well,
were at these
foreclosures.
horrible sales.
part of that bounce back in the other communities, though, Natalie, is because they weren't affected by the Highlands Act.
Yeah.
And that goes back to page 28. From 2014 to 2018, we've had 6 new homes built.
Yeah, you can't.
Yeah, they
get-
don't, we
You know,
don't build homes in
When
Vernon
you go
anymore.
around central Jersey and you're driving around,
Oh,
you're
yeah.
seeing developments popping up all over the place, and
Well, all of Sussex County has been affected by that.
no doubt.
Yeah.
And that's why Sussex County is one of the
is-
worst counties in the state for it.
Yep.
But
Exactly.
you're not gonna get the bounce that other areas are because
No.
we're limited in our, and I don't wanna say inventory, but in our growth, I guess.
Mhm.
You know, our houses that we have are the houses that we have. We're not gonna really
you're
have.
not seeing a lot of new
No.
construction.
And
You're
that's,
seeing
No,
flipping.
there's no.
and that's a
yeah.
very good point.
You're seeing
That's what-
flipping, but
Which
that's,
is
that's
again,
what you have.
which could be
But that-
problematic
that's the
too, though,
great
because
thing,
that
if
could
we
increase.
If we purge all our foreclosures, which we are doing at a rapid rate,
But
now
does-
we're getting those families in.
But does flipping artificially spike this number?
Mm.
Because it's foreclosed, you buy it, you fix it for 6 months, you sell it, so now you've got 2 sales, right?
Right.
So
Yeah.
that's, I think, I just think we need to,
That
you know,
artificially inflates that
that
number. You're
artificially
absolutely- yeah.
inflates this number. So I'm not saying houses aren't being sold, but I live on a road with about 8 or 9 houses. I've got 3 foreclosures on my road.
Mhm.
2 of them have been sitting empty for years.
Well,
And
I
it-
One
mean,
just-
it
you know, so-
takes a while to foreclose on. I mean,
Well, but they've
that's-
been foreclosed, you know,
Yeah.
that process has been done. So what I'm saying is like but that's my anecdotal evidence. So
Sure.
I think we need to also really take into consideration what
Oh, absolutely.
the expert has said.
And
Oh,
again,
no, I know what you're saying.
as I
Definitely.
pointed out before, he was very accurate.
He was he was very accurate, like within
Mm-hmm.
like what, three students or something, Brad? It was like
Oh, it was
crazy close.
It was amazing what 5 years out, how accurate he was.
Yeah.
I can't remember off the top of my head, but.
I just think this is inflated because
And
of
the
flips.
other thing that concerns me too is that his pre-K numbers are fixed at 58.
Why did he do that?
I don't know.
Is that because of our program size, though?
Yeah,
Well,
but
we have a
The
set
maximum
program
amount of
size?
seats we
But
have,
we
or
have,
yeah,
close
but we have
to.
90
Yeah.
kids.
No, we have
So
no
it's
Oh,
not.
he says here in the last 4 years, pre-kindergarten enrollment has ranged from 47 to 83, which is an average of 58 students.
Right, but
Don't
it's
forget,
90.
in pre-K, we have students who qualify
Right.
Of course.
through an IEP,
Yeah.
transitioning from early intervention or elsewhere, versus tuition-paying students.
So,
So I don't know if maybe that is the
So he
students.
said, no, he said pre-kindergarten children with special needs were not included in these counts and were instead included with the special education projections.
Oh, okay.
Which is the 111.
Which is
Exactly.
111.
But,
Oh.
wait a second, that really is confusing, because I just went back and I read it again. He was referring to the SE, I'm guessing,
The 111?
that's an acronym for special education. That is, I'm trying to put these statistics and numbers together because special education versus students who are in a self-contained, ungraded, setting are very different than special
Mm-hmm. Right.
education.
Right.
So that right there, the 58 of pre-K and the 111 in special education, I'm looking at this saying to myself, this really doesn't make much sense. I think what he's trying to get to isn't helping us. because it's a very different situation, and to say that the students, you know, are in a self-contained setting, some are ungraded, but that's a stretch, I would think.
So he's basically saying those 58 kids are the gen ed
Gen ed.
tuition base? Is that what he's saying?
That's what he says in his notes.
Yes.
Right, but then we won't, what basically he's saying is then he doesn't know our pre-K. And that actually, I think, would be an easier statistic to find, because all you have to do is go back to early intervention,
Right.
see how many students you have in early intervention, take the percentage of how many usually qualify from early intervention into a preschool setting, and that's actually probably one of the easiest things to find.
I think he could have included that number. He lumped it in though, he's saying, with the SE column, I think.
But
based on
then,
his notes.
so 111 students from pre-K to grade 12.
It's self-contained. I don't know what our self-contained numbers are. I mean, I know we have a much higher number with IEPs, but I have no clue who's self-contained.
But
One of the good things is, this is a really simple demographic model, and any one of us could do it. I'm serious.
yeah, I was
It's-
just gonna say,
it's
you
not-
could
it's
figure
not
out
hard.
your preschool.
You can go back to his original
Yeah.
paper, I found his original paper that he published
Mhm.
on this model, and it's really simple. So
Mhm.
if we wanted to modify these numbers, put in the 220 kindergarten projection that we have, and
Right.
Extrapolate it out.
and figure out what our 4 and 5 year enrollments
With
would
that
be,
adjustment.
we could certainly do that. That's not that.
Right, and I agree with Mike, because I was saying with the preschool, that's actually probably a
How
very
is
easy
he-
number to figure out.
But then how is he determining those year-on-year fluctuations if you follow diagonally with each grade? Because if we put 220 as our kindergarten,
167,
where 167 is,
right.
how are we going to determine what that
171,
student body is going to
He has
look
a
like?
cohort, using the survivor cohort down here, table
Yeah.
11.
Okay. No, but those are using two different ones. This is using a 4 years, and this is using a 5-year data group. So,
5-year data sound even more.
Right, so for table 10, he's going back 4 years and then looking at trends based on the previous 4 years and then projecting them forward 5 years.
but there's a factor there that he's using to determine
Exactly.
what our loss or gain in students.
Based on, and then in table 11, he's going backwards 5 years to see those trends.
Yeah, we would have to back out whatever that factor is that he's using.
Well, it's the number of years. 4 years worth of data versus 5 years worth of data to project.
Mm-hmm.
And the 4-year and 5-year historical data, at least from his demographic model, work better for different size districts. So, I guess I should have been a little bit more prepared, is I forget which 4-year model works maybe better for smaller districts, and the 5-year history works better for larger districts. I'd have to double check, but I think that's the way it worked.
That's very interesting.
So our
Because
first,
So there was a comparison.
It's
Somebody
the
did a
population,
comparison.
right, so the
Between-
that's a
yes.
very interesting point.
So when do we first have to report our enrollment to the state for
October
1920? October
October
15th?
15th is usually the official student
So the
count.
lower the population, the
Right.
more it could spike.
I think it's a little bit more variable, the lower the
It's more
population,
variable.
right, yeah.
That makes sense.
So in October, can we just put another line on top to see what our actual numbers are compared to this?
Oh, yeah.
Sure,
It'd be interesting
October
to see.
15th, we would know,
Yeah.
to see how we look in
You know,
comparison.
It would be interesting
and the
to see
thing
that.
is,
Sure.
the whole thing that throws this whole thing off is the SC number.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
we have the enrollment part right here,
Oh.
June of 19, right? And our first grade number, June of 19, was 200 students, which would be the second grade
grade.
on this one, it's 185. But you don't know how many of those SE kids are
Yeah.
attributed to.
So we
and I
don't
don't
have
remember
to-
that last time, Steve. Do you have his old report?
It's online, let me just, it's a similar format.
Is it? I
Yes.
just don't remember that SE number before.
There's a unique report that gets filed with NJ Smart. it's similar to that October 15th. It's called the Fall Report. And he's pulling numbers from that, which is counting self-contained classes, and that's where he's getting this SE category. You almost can't say he's right or wrong. He's just using a mathematical statistical formula to estimate. I think
Right, I just think it's
that's what he's doing.
acronyms. It's confusing,
But it's
it's
misleading.
misleading, yeah, if I receive that from a special education perspective, be like, wait a second.
Yeah, but for the kindergarten enrollment, we're already, it's throwing a curveball into the whole study.
In a good way.
And we also haven't, like, August is usually a flurry.
Yeah, Brad, it's the exact same format
the same
from the
format.
July 2013. Yes.
Last August there wasn't, but there traditionally is a influx of students
Well,
right
because you have
before
all the
school
closings
starts.
that happen in August.
Right.
And they come in. So, and they all got delayed because we're having nothing but septic issues. So now that all gets delayed, so we have to wait until they're done for everybody to close.
Right.
So you're gonna see a lot more closings in August now this year, so you're gonna see
Right.
an influx all of a
Yeah,
sudden.
yeah, last year we didn't see the rush.
Last year, we
at the
didn't have the
last
same
couple-
problem with
Yeah.
the rain and the
Yeah.
septics.
Yep. It's great having a
There's a-
real estate person on our board.
There's a lot
isn't
of
it?
factors that go, it's like the craziest thing, there's a lot of factors that go into it.
You bet.
Definitely.
One of the interesting things that I pulled out from this is that he was using a facilities plan from
Yes.
2005, 6, something like that. And we're obviously in a very different place.
We're reconfigured.
Facility-wise, but
Yeah.
also educationally wise, right? So, we're not in the traditional classroom with 25 students with a chalkboard.
Nope.
We're in a classroom with a dedicated laser cutter. We're in a classroom with a dedicated kitchen. And so, this might lead into the facilities discussion, so that, we have all this space and you might think it's not utilized, but, that it's utilized maybe for a specific purpose. And, one of the goals is to evaluate the facilities, which I think is necessary so that we can
Optimize.
Right. And determine, what space we can use with the enrollment that we are projected to have.
I mean, in terms of facilities and use, there's a real life in terms of how many you can fit in a classroom reasonably with, our classrooms, the way they're being used today. But back in 2005, which is what he's pulling from, when we all had to do the long-range facility plan, we submitted to the state classroom, square foot per classroom, and they have their standard per square feet of how many kids as compared to how many we actually have in the classrooms. And we came up with what they call unhoused students. In other words, an overage of what the state's standard says we should have. And I think that's what he's using, is that state standard, which will mean little to you guys because, we're using our facilities completely differently than the state standard from 2005. That's the problem.
Yeah, and it's not only a factor at the upper grades where we have all those specialized spaces for different purposes in the lower grades because of the number of IEPs we have.
You
We
bet.
have smaller groups of students because we have to. And we still have to house those students in classrooms, even if there's 12 students in a class as opposed to your traditional 20 or 22.
Who would have predicted in 2005 we'd have a distance learning room produced from a HEF grant from SCCC up at the high school? Or a laser cutter? Or a hospitality unit?
Yeah.
Or a, right,
The media room was quite impressive.
isn't that something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we had such a great time on that tour yesterday. We got to really.
It's
like,
impressive.
see- It really was.
We're doing some good
Yeah.
stuff.
Those are the key spots on the tour.
See, that's our open house program.
Oh, yeah.
So how does this guide us?
I don't know. It
Right.
certainly doesn't guide us on space. I think that space has become a very interesting discussion in our district.
Well, we have other snapshots, right? I mean, I know Steve forwarded information to the board today on classrooms and what's being used and what's not used. So, you know, we have other mechanisms internally between the board and the district personnel where we can continue to look at snapshots of room use or building use, depending on what the desires are and the needs are as we move forward.
This is one tool to help us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Will he take questions from us if we?
Of course.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a question. He needs to put error bars on these numbers, right? So,
Yeah.
so there's a degree of confidence that he has with his total enrollment. And, you know, that could be based on the number of times he does this, but, you know, those numbers are guesses, and when you do exit polling, you know, you basically guess and you have a margin of error, and so those, error bars
Plus
would
or
be.
minus some
Yes,
some
right,
degree, yeah.
right.
Yeah, the margin of error, yep.
He may have that. What is it?
Yeah, I mean, he does all, you know,
Yeah.
he should have his data from all the studies that he
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
and have a good idea of what.
If you take his first year number that he has there, what, I think it was 2846 or whatever it was, and subtract out the kindergarten and pre-K, and then if you take our actual numbers and subtract out the,
Out of district.
no,
Oh.
subtract out the 12th grade that graduated
Mm-hmm.
and the preschool number, he's 45 off. Which to me is considerable, considering where he was when he did this the last time.
Right, but you know, but that's these data, right? So these are our district. He does, I don't know how many districts.
Right.
And so, you know, is he that good every district?
Right.
Is this,
right.
you know, is this, well,
So
replacement?
why don't we, as a board, then, if we have questions, like what Mike had about arrow,
Error bars.
Error.
Error bars.
Margin of error.
Forward them to Steve, and then if we could have those to Steve by the end of next week, and then he could reach out to Dr. Grip and ask those questions and get some
Yeah,
clarity.
like the clarification on
Yeah.
the special education.
How he
numbers
comes
and-
up with that.
Yes, no
Yeah.
problem. And not for nothing, maybe, I mean, we chose to not do this. We could invite him for 20 minutes and explain it to the board.
And then we gotta pay.
It'd be an
him.
expensive
Yeah.
20 minutes.
5,000 was enough.
Yeah.
He's coming from
Unless he-
Vermont or
unless he-
someplace,
yeah,
isn't
he's
he?
I just don't know if he's gonna be able to answer
I'll go to him.
all the questions. in his-
We'll take a road trip.
I'll go to
Road
Vermont.
trip to him.
It's cheaper than China.
China didn't cost us anything.
Is his address in here or no?
It's too
Are you
soon.
gonna drive to?
I don't think it is, no. But, okay, so if anybody has any questions about that report, let's forward them to Steve, and then we can go from there. All right.
Dr. Peak, thank you for your expertise.
Yes.
I like hearing about error bars because I don't know anything about that.
I mean,
I
they
like
say
that.
error, right? But it's not really error.
Yeah, it's the margin.
Uncertainty.
It's a standard
Okay.
deviation, right?
Is it a margin of
They're-
error?
They're all
Like,
kind of
okay.
related.
Okay.
They're all, yeah. But, you know, people think of an error as a mistake.
No,
It's not really a mistake. It's
Right.
it's a degree of.
The confidence, degree of confidence.
right.
Yeah.
I like
Okay.
it.
Letter G, Steve,
All right. Let me find my.
review of wellness clinic service proposal.
I trust you, Brad. Review of, here we go, thank you. So, for the public's sake, we went to RFP for a wellness clinic services. We did only receive one proposal from Integrity. So we're now, Justin, as the chair of the ad hoc, we've taken a look at this. We've had a phone call with the head of Integrity. What I want to do is pull together the entire committee, likely in early September, maybe not during the summer months, to share this with them. But in the meantime, we have additional questions that we need to ask of Integrity, because it didn't have in here really what we need, a true financial cost estimate to determine if it would be a financial savings going to this type of insurance. So there's more to follow on this. So today, my suggestion is, I'm not recommending approving or awarding a contract to this proposal. Justin, anything else?
No.
Okay.
Completely agree.
And then I just did want to give an update to the board regarding where we're at on the phosphate system. We've contracted with Agra and Mike Fury for $9,500 to oversee getting approvals from the state, DEP, and then we have to get approval from the county. Mike is saying that could be 3 months for each. I think we need to expedite that. Mike Fury was out this week, so I don't know where he's at in terms of his request to the state first to get the application going. I called the gentleman at the state today. He's going to forward to me his application. We have a licensed operator that handles the testing of our well water on a regular basis. The licensed operator has to assist with completion of that application. It may very well be that they have it in process and have submitted it to the state. I don't think so. So I want to get a copy of that, call a licensed operator, see if we can move that quickly, and see if we can expedite getting approval, then go to the county. In the meantime, for $7,200, we have encumbered money to construct a shed over the well. But we haven't sent that to the contractor yet. On the advice of Mike Fury, in the off chance, I say off chance, I'm sure it's going to get approved, but in the off chance it doesn't get approved, we don't want to be obligated to $7,200 shed unnecessarily. However, we did encumber the money out of your capital reserve. So I don't know where Mike is at with the state, and my hope is to expedite the application with the state and then to the county. Any questions on it?
So that $9,500, that's in addition to the entire project?
No, it's $9,500 for getting approvals with the state and buying the equipment and him setting it up with us. Then there's $7,200 to construct the shed. Everything beyond that is going to be operating costs with additional testing, because now annually we will have to oversee additional testing of this phosphate injection system.
Okay.
No, it's not in addition. The $9,500 is Agra's cost for ultimately everything other than the shed. Questions on that? And then recommendations. There, on your addendum, I did have a additional piece for the finances, but it's recommended that the board approve the following financial reports as listed, and including that on your addendum.
Motion for 2A, please.
So moved.
Dr. Pete, second.
Second?
Ms. Bucieri, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Blumer,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Peak,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Annenziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta.
Yes, but abstain on the check to Sussex World that does not have a check number on it.
No, it doesn't.
Motion carries.
Letter B, it's recommended the board accept the report of the secretary for the months of May and June, as well as the treasurer of school monies.
Motion for 2B, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second.
Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Coughlin,
Yes.
Mrs. Blumer,
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell,
Yes.
Dr. Peak,
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney.
Yes.
Mr. Annenziata,
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri,
Yes.
Mr. Sparta.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter C, it's recommended the board approve transportation as listed.
Motion for 2C, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second. Second.
Second?
Ms. Bucieri, questions or comments?
Why are we paying a bus for the ESY oh, the extended school year, okay. I thought it was ESS, sorry.
Oh.
I looked at it quickly.
I thought we had it.
ESY. Okay, nope, forget that.
I thought we had a discussion or a directive that we weren't gonna be using coach buses anymore. I can understand the trip to Washington using a coach bus.
But they're all band competitions. Don't we have to
Yeah.
for band competitions? Because they need the
That's what we-
storage.
I thought we discussed this, that they have the trailers to take their stuff down. Wasn't this a directive that you put out?
We talked about it, I don't know that it was a directive, but I do know that internally, and certainly there's more conversation that needs to happen here, but, one of the things that we created internally was a transportation, budget, spreadsheet that was created for the activities in each, school. And one of the mechanisms we put in place internally was that, as long as the school did not exceed the transportation allocation for that particular activity, it ended up on the agenda. That doesn't mean that, we can't have further discussion about it. I don't know, I mean, I'm gonna guess that somewhere like MetLife Stadium, is that the one that's,
To Meadowlands.
the Meadowlands?
Yes.
That when they're traveling that kind of a distance, I would imagine that you're probably seeing, no, Paquonic is
Mount
down the
Olive.
road,
And I
right?
can speak
Mount
to it
Olive.
as well.
Yeah,
Now,
yeah.
the way I remember that conversation was that for the band, they needed that space underneath to store their equipment.
That's the way I remember it.
Yeah.
I agree
'Cause
with you, Justin.
There are a few, I know, I remember how it came up. It came up at one point, I think I was just here, and I think I brought up the question, why is the band traveling using coach buses if we're worried about, and I said, I think I even said I didn't want to say it publicly because I was new and and obviously I came from a music background. And I think the conversation around the table was concern for equipment, and that if we were gonna use regular buses, right, that if we used regular buses, we'd have to use more regular buses
Exactly.
to
It's not the
equate the
savings that you
total
may
store,
think.
right. So if you use, for example, if the cost, for example, J. Bernie Crum Stadium says cost per bus is $12.50, right, because they're headed out to PA. So if we used regular school buses, we'd have to use more buses at less cost per bus, but the total turned out to be the same thing. Because I do
Yeah,
know that I
use
followed
double
back
buses.
to Jamie Van Gilst on this, that I don't think we saw any savings by looking at utilizing school buses as opposed to coach buses, because then the instruments, instead of going under, and uniforms, instead of going under, have to go
Take up
in
Okay,
seats.
so then the
Yeah.
question would be, these are quoted items, correct?
Yes.
So when the quotes are sent out, they're sent out for a coach bus quote, correct?
They are, yes.
So what if there was a quote set out for, instead of 2 coach buses, 3 regular buses, and the third bus is used to carry the equipment?
We did look at that, and when we looked at the cost of 3 regular buses instead of 2 coach buses, it was comparable to the total
But as a
overall
board, we
cost.
don't know that.
Okay, so how would you like to proceed?
Well, it's gonna get approved. But my point being is,
Oh, to look at the comparative cost between.
yeah, I mean,
Okay.
you're sending out a quote specific for a coach bus, so you're only gonna get coach bus pricing back.
You're right, you're right.
Right.
But if you send it out to, what do we have, craft student,
right,
you know,
right.
whatever
Right.
it may be, you might have 3 buses, I mean, I know what the buses are when we approve them for sports trips,
Right,
that go an hour and a half away.
Right.
And 3 buses don't add up to,
2 coaches.
okay.
We also need to discuss with the band director and the transportation and individuals, is their equipment gonna fit onto a regular bus? Because I know that they have large sound equipment, so.
Right.
Don't
a
they
lot
have
of those
their own
buses aren't awful
trucks
big.
too?
What's that?
Don't they have their own trucks too?
A trailer.
Band
They have
equipment.
a trailer.
They'd have to have someone drive it. I don't know who drives the trailer.
Somebody
band
from the
parent.
VIPs.
Band parent.
Yep.
Yeah.
I used to
So
drive.
when we put out the bid, we want to see what the 2 coaches versus the 3 school buses
Right.
is.
Or
Three or
whatever else
however
would be.
many buses
That's
we
what
would
the
need.
board
I don't
wants.
know that it's
Okay.
3 or 4. I understand what you're saying.
And the reality is, I
But-
think if we can look at a lesser cost for
Yes.
competitions that are not that far, I think would probably be the first
the,
initiative
the,
for cost
the,
savings,
the
right?
St. Patty's Day Parade, those type of things that,
Right,
you
J.
know,
Bernie Crum is far, Rutgers, and MetLife for me are, I mean, they're big ones and they're a drive,
It
right?
doesn't make sense that Pequannock is more expensive than MetLife Stadium.
$25 more.
the Quantics half the distance to MetLife Stadium.
Right.
Is it the time? I
could
wonder
be.
if one's
We
like
don't
an
know how long
overnight,
they-
like a
it could
late
be their
night.
availability.
Yeah.
Is our evening
we quote
hours
them, and
different?
that's
This could
how they
also
come back.
be, they might be in Pequannock for 4 hours and in Northern Valley for 6 hours, or for, you know,
Yeah, that's true.
And they're at MetLife Stadium all day.
yeah, I have no clue.
I do.
Yes.
Oh, you live this? You
I was
did.
a Band-Aid.
Okay, you were Band-Aid. So you know.
Rip it off fast. All right, we have a first and a second on this, correct, Jen? Okay, roll call vote?
Mrs. Blumer?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Thank you. Letter D, it's recommended that the board approve the tuition contracts and related services contracts as listed in the chart.
Motion for 2D, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second.
Ms. Cherry, questions or comments? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Blumer?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Letter E and letter F are similar, so letter E, it's recommended the board approve the Chapter 192, 193 non-public services agreement between the board and the Sussex County Ed Service Commission.
Motion for 2E, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second.
Ms. Luder, questions or comments? Roll call vote?
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Luther?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Abstain?
Motion carries.
Very good. Letter F, it's recommended the board approve Chapter 226 non-public school nursing services agreement between this Board of Ed and Sussex County Ed Service Commission for this school year.
Motion for 2F, please.
So moved.
Dr. Peak, second.
Second.
Mr. Sweeney, questions or comments? Roll call vote?
Mr. Sweeney?
Yes.
Mr. Annunziata?
Yes.
Mrs. Bucieri?
Yes.
Mrs. Coughlin?
Yes.
Mrs. Blumer?
Yes.
Mrs. Mitchell?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Yes.
Mr. Sparta?
Abstain.
Motion carries.
And that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, with that, we'll go to public participation. If you have anything you'd like to say, please stand up, state your name, section of town you're from. This is for items on the agenda or any other business, and Ms. Heath has been extremely patient tonight.
Yes, she has. Very much so. Thank you.
So Heath, the Hidden Valley Commons in Vernon. I just wanted to bring it to the board of it. We do still have the partnership with the community college, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring it to the board's attention that the vice chair of the Sussex County Community College Board of Trustees has come under fire due to some extremely offensive tweets made on a Twitter page that he runs and is the chair of the organization for that page. I can forward the content to anyone, but I don't think you want any of what was said in the minutes because it's like gross and racist and icky. But I did want to point out that his comments reflect poorly on the organizations he's a part of, and as Vernon has a affiliation with community college, we are now affiliated with those statements. Several organizations have come out asking the Board of Trustees to condemn the Vice Chair's comments. Several people went to the Board of Trustees meeting, to the freeholders meeting. Just to let you guys know, is that gross and racist?
Yeah, this was actually in the paper yesterday or the day before. Yeah,
Probably all week, honestly.
It was, yeah, there was an article in the paper about it, and I read it. You know, I think, and I didn't see the tweets. I only read what was in the article. I think as, you know, a Board of Education, we have to let Sussex County Community College do their due process first before we do anything. And I think it was Mr. Burrell who said it, that, you know, they go by the letter of the law. They're gonna go ahead and look at their policy, see if there's any thing that he violated. And, you know, once Sussex County Community College does their due diligence, if we need to do something, we will do something as well.
Okay.
Who is their vice chair?
What's,
What was his
do you
name?
remember his name?
Jerry Scanlon?
Scanlon. He is actually the head of the countywide Republican organization, and the comments he made were pretty derogatory against some Democrat assembly or Congress people. So again, let's let Sussex County Community College do their investigation and see what they come up with. I'm sure this is not something that is going to be swept under the carpet and something we're not going to hear about again. So we appreciate you saying something, and we will keep our eye on it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you,
Thanks,
Zoe.
Zoe.
Thank you.
Seeing nobody else, I'll close it to the public. Open board member forum. Anybody have? We don't have another executive, right? Okay. Open board member forum. Anybody have anything they'd like to say?
So we got this, right? We didn't really talk about it.
Yeah, we needed an updated evaluation. Steve was kind enough to get this. This was a request from yesterday's meeting.
Okay.
However, what I wanted was a snapshot each period, what rooms were not being occupied in the high school.
Oh,
So I
okay.
just, we wanted to evaluate
So we need
how
more
we were
information.
utilizing the high
Gotcha.
school and see what type of space we have available over there.
So are you gonna do this like 8 times then for like each period?
Well, that's a
Yeah.
good question. What's it look like? There's a couple ways to do it. And I'd like to wait till September 1 when we have full enrollment, instead of doing it now only to change it in 6 weeks. But there are a couple ways to do it. We can print 9 of these, 9 maps,
That's the way to do
and
it.
go period 1 and
That's the way to do it.
exactly, where's it filled?
Yeah, because you're gonna wanna see the
Period
visual
2,
piece,
do a
right?
similar to
I
this,
do,
where's
yeah.
it filled? Period 3. And I can also do it, room numbers on the left, periods 1 through 9 on the left to right, and then just fill in the grid.
It's just gotta be a
No,
check
I-
mark or,
I'd rather have a visual just like this,
Yeah, I
9
agree.
times over.
That's fine.
I would
I
say, for the purposes of the visual, could it be helpful if you take spaces that aren't classrooms, like
Instead
your-
of-
like the auditorium, the
Or the
lower
art
library, the
office,
guidance
the weight
offices, weight room,
room,
all those,
yeah.
and put them in a different color so it doesn't look like it's unutilized
Okay.
space. Like,
Okay.
Yeah,
Yes.
like make them
again,
red.
Make them red, so
Yeah.
we know that those are common spaces that we don't expect them to.
So
Yeah.
in the September version, will you put the number of kids in each?
Well, that's what I would
Number
do
of
in the grid, not-
students?
as opposed to the
Yeah.
check, period, room 102, period 3, how many students?
Well,
Yes.
can you do both of those things? Can you do like that
Yes,
summary
I
and
will
the
do
visual?
both of those, yes.
Thank you.
No problem. The software does it. It does
Okay.
much of it. I mean, it's time consuming, but the software can generate. Quite frankly, I have more than just this. Honestly, I just didn't know how to compile it for you, and now we're talking about it, so we'll do both.
I'm
We'll
sorry,
just-
Steve,
we'll
I
do
just really
visual.
wanna know how we're maximizing our space
No, I
and just
understand.
kinda get a feel.
and
I
I
understand.
I mean, I think it,
Kind of-
I think it really should be done for every school, even though I think
I agree,
we know
you
that
know.
some of our schools are,
Yeah,
Full
a little
utilization.
packed right now.
Glen Meadow, that would be
It's a
interesting,
Good
right?
idea how we
Yeah.
utilize our space and maybe better ways to do things,
Did this,
once you look at it
I mean,
visually.
did this represent anything, or
I don't know what you mean.
The
Did
highlighted,
it
the
represent-
highlighted rooms are used.
Yes.
it's so,
The
they're
ones
just,
that are white
so like
apparently are not.
129 is not used at all throughout the
Ever?
whole day?
Never ever.
That's exactly right. Yes, that's right.
But
to your po-
room,
How is that possible?
but room 142 might
129.
only be utilized for one period.
Exactly.
Right.
And that, so
We
that
don't
I
know.
just does us
understand.
nothing.
And I read your email.
Right.
We talked about it earlier. I
we
didn't have
did,
it
it
yesterday.
was
I
after
wanted to get
2 hours
something
of
today.
a tour,
Yeah.
so I mean, it's not Steve's fault, we just.
129 is a cardio lab.
Yeah.
Yeah, so this.
And you do have to be careful. Some of these are office spaces, so it's not
Okay, yeah,
as
so
bleak
those
as it may
rooms,
look.
yeah, so those need to
There's
be
Yeah.
Well,
blazed out.
exercise equipment
Yeah,
is
because you,
now.
according to
Yeah,
this,
they use
you've got like a dozen rooms
Yeah.
that are never used, which
They
I
use
don't
it, but
think
the
is.
classes to go in there randomly.
That way, maybe the grid style, I
Because,
can pull out office spaces and it'll just be classrooms.
but the one that Chuck just brought up, the cardio room, for example, there are children in there at different times, but that's not their assigned
No,
location on their
right.
schedule.
Right.
Do
Their
you see what I
assigned
mean?
location on their
Their
schedule
assigned
is the gym
schedule's
period.
Right.
But they're in the cardio room
Right.
if they're
Yeah,
taking
so
the
that's
That's a
fitness
whole nother
portion.
conversation.
Yeah. What's
Yeah.
that?
That's a whole nother conversation.
Well,
But
Or the way
just
yeah,
for clarification.
it's not
for
as simple
purposes of
as it may look on
conversations.
paper.
Yeah.
It's not, and I appreciate your help on
No,
that.
that's,
The
so
other,
we'll do what we can do.
The other piece that we discussed, and, I would love for your input here, is, I don't know if anybody walked through by the freshman academy But, my vision for the freshman academy would be like something where it's like super inspirational. You walk in, you see a lot of things going on in the hallways, and, it's just very, very bland. It's like a mauve type of, locker spaces, and then just, white walls. I would love to see welcome class of 2023. And I want them to, especially since we have an academy, like that whole wing for them, let's get something in there that inspires them when they walk in and feels like, wow, I'm home, this is where I belong. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So,
I do think, I agree with you, I do want to remind us when we talk about the high school that, and this is kind of a joke for educators, but folks will understand this, elementary school teachers will spend the entire summer decorating their rooms and making it feel welcome, and high school teachers will come in like August 31st. And create some of those, so I think it'll look a little bit more vibrant when school starts,
I just
but I
mean
don't
like even the
disagree.
hallways, like,
Sure,
the-
what
it
would
was
be
just
wonderful
kinda,
too, I mean, we have the ability to create vinyl posters
Yes,
with,
we
the
heard all
graphic
about it
design.
Yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, so that's
Yeah,
what
we
your
talked about
ambition
that
is,
yesterday.
right? Okay.
So,
No, we did.
I know, but you
We're talking about
it's like,
hallways.
yesterday was like an eye-opening experience.
I've been on
No, but
I've been
like,
a
I
board
mean,
member basically 22 years.
Joe, tell
And
your
I've been
story.
in rooms that
Yeah.
I had never been in before.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Joe
That's
has a
good.
very good inspirational story. Go ahead and tell that story, Joe.
What story is that?
The story about the inspirational saying.
No.
Oh, please do, because it'll prove my
he's
point.
turning red, look at his face.
Go ahead.
You know,
Just move on.
I think there's, but to Kelly's point though, I think there's a lot that could be done to that high school
Right.
that would allow
Sure,
students to put their own little mark on it.
I agree.
One of the things I saw recently was a school down in, I think it was Texas. The seniors go in and they paint their parking space.
Yeah, we do that in my.
You know, I mean,
Oh,
something
that's-
like that,
that's
you know?
neat.
I call on quite a bit of schools now for my job, and so many schools will have a rock that the
Yeah,
graduating
we have
class
that.
is painting, it's a senior
Yep.
rock or whatever it may be. So if we can try to maybe
Yeah.
do some more things up there to make it warmer
In
and,
my,
make it more inviting.
This is right.
In my previous district, they did a senior class gift, which is kind of a tradition, so the senior class with whatever funds they raised. One year it was a koi pond, one year it was a stained glass window, one year it was a part of a lab, so,
Yeah,
there are a
that's
lot of, a lot of great things out there.
We need
And
an
for- and for
alumni
some of the
gift.
other schools.
Yeah.
I'll do it.
We need an alumni gift.
We should do it.
So alumni donate.
I think they
Some
have
do.
had that, yeah.
If
in
they have
some
any money left
classes,
over
yeah.
at the end of graduation, they do, and we actually,
But I mean, they graduated alumni every year.
well,
Get-
our,
get alumni
at our
to contribute.
reunion, a couple of years ago, I won't say what year it was, I think we took up a donation and donated something back as well, and I think some class reunions do that.
Yeah. Well, that goes along with the alumni,
That's the goal.
outreach, right,
Yeah.
that's one of the goals.
Foundation.
I'll work on that too.
And if I could just build on the high school, actually, what I was going to ask, thank you for doing the tour of the buildings. Kelly, you had mentioned windows, you were talking about the seals. The freshman academy is notoriously chilly,
Well,
known to be chilly.
that's where all the windows are,
So,
the seals are broken.
right, when are those gonna be replaced, I guess was my question, because I heard the conversation, I heard the windows. When can we plan on them being replaced?
Well, I want to count how many windows need replacing.
Okay.
Can they just be repaired?
Well,
Do
they're
they have to be
$1,800
replaced?
per window.
Seals are broken.
How much per
Per
window?
Can't repair a
window or like
seal?
per
Oh, because there's
Per window.
gas that goes in.
physical,
Oh,
Yes.
So it's
They're not cheap.
$1,800 per window.
the window.
I
not
didn't-
like, oh,
I
Not
didn't
like
build
your
that into the
house
budget,
window.
it's a budget problem.
They're
No.
double
They're
double
double
windows, they're double
pane.
seal pane, so you
Yeah.
can't just replace a
But we have to replace
No.
the
pane of
whole-
glass. It's gotta be
We're gonna
done.
have to replace the whole window.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That might be something that can be done out of capital reserve if needed, right?
I suppose, yes.
I mean,
But
the
I-
But I
one,
did,
Again,
again, I
Just
didn't
found out
budget for
yesterday,
that.
it's gonna have to,
Yeah.
he's gonna.
So that
have
will
to
add
do
up
some work on it.
relatively quickly.
Like a staggered.
So I can't answer your question, I don't know.
yeah, I guess I was
I
looking
wouldn't say, I
for
wouldn't
an
wanna give it
idea.
time now, because I would, that might be, I don't know,
Well,
what, spring?
Well, I
or
was gonna
if there's-
say,
if
that
there's
work has to
break-
be done when there's nobody in school, because you're gonna have windows that are taken out.
Well, that's
Yeah.
true.
Well, I mean, look, it was identified yesterday, so we have to assess what that looks like, what the cost is, and take a look from there, right? I mean, we identified it.
well, the
and
great
have
thing
to-
about it is they're
Yeah.
all encased in aluminum and we're gonna recycle. So we're green, we'll make a little money off of that.
I
Right,
wouldn't
Steve?
wanna spend, yes, but I wouldn't wanna spend $15,000 that I didn't budget and then just hope we find the breakage along the way.
Yeah.
I would rather wait till maybe March where we can identify, we have a windfall here, and then we do it in the spring, quite frankly.
Yeah, that's what I was looking for, like a timeline,
Yes.
only because
I don't know that I
the
planned for
high
that
school
early
is
fall.
notoriously
I just-
chilly in that section, and I wonder if that
Premature.
contributes to it.
Yeah, that, the head custodian that opened up that building, there was a comment that was made about turning on the heat in the high school on Facebook. And he turned on that it's one of the worst heating systems he's ever seen in his entire life. at
Oh,
school.
great.
Because of how the univents work, bringing in the fresh air,
That's right.
at, 32 degrees or
Mhm.
whatever it is outside,
Right.
and bringing it into the room. It's just,
That's a requirement, though.
It is,
The
it's an
unit vent,
exchange of
that's a-
air,
yeah,
yes. In
that's
your
a
house, you
public
don't have to
school
do that. In a public building,
Yeah,
you have,
to.
and I understand the
10% or
problem,
something. Yeah.
where it's not 30-degree air, but it's tempered, but it's
Right.
colder air, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And if you put your hand over it, it feels like it's very cold. It's
Sure.
about 65-degree fresh air coming in. So.
Yeah, but that's cool.
Keep the students awake, right? Unless you-
Winters are tough.
anybody have anything else for open board member forum? Filing deadline is Monday for school board members. It was in the paper.
Almost right. I know.
Hopefully, everybody has their petitions in. And that's it. So I'll take a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Mr. Sweeney, Dr. Peak, second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
We're adjourned.
I'm looking
That's
at
yours,
that
right?
guy over there.
You bet.
I
I am too.
looking away.
I know he is.
Hey,
I
oh,
know.
yeah,
I'm
look
looking
at
right
that
at
one.
him.
Because
He's the best.
Kelly put it on there. They just said she's
I'm working on it. I finished my signatures today.